Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the January 2024 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting. I'm first going to, under the circumstances where I'm not certain that there is a quorum, we're going to first try to ascertain whether there's a quorum. If there is, we'll proceed. If not, I'll explain what happens procedurally. Toward ascertaining whether there is a quorum, I'm going to call for a roll call vote temporarily, just some procedural incidents. I'm Gregory Lewis. I am counsel to the Brooklyn Borough President, and I am chairing this meeting, this Borough Board meeting, under a September 2022 order from the Brooklyn Borough President. Seated beside me is Carol Ann Church, Director of Community Boards. Ms. Church, toward determining whether we have a quorum and are able to proceed, would you please call the roll?
I will begin with council members. If you are a council member designee, please state your name. Thank you. Council District 33, Wrestler.
Proceed, please. May we please have order? Proceed, Ms. Church.
Again, Council District 33, Wrestler. Council District 34, Gutierrez. Thank you. Your name? Thank you. Council District 35, Member Hudson. Thank you. Council District 36, Member Osei. Council District 37, Member Nurse. Council District 38, Member Aviles. Council District 39, Member Hanif. Thank you. Council District 40, Member Joseph. Thank you. Council District 41, Member Mealy. Thank you. Happy New Year. Council District 42, Member Banks. Council District 43, Member Brannon.
No, I'm sorry. Council Member 43 is me, Susan Dorf.
Oh, sorry, we twisted it. My apologies. I'll do that again. Council District 33, Members Wang. Welcome. Council District 44, Member Yeager. Council District 45, Member Louis. I saw that. Council District 46, Member Nassis. Council District 47, Member Brennan. Council District 48, Member Vernikov. Council District 50, Member Carr. And now we will move to the community boards. Same. If you're representing the chair, please state your name when you respond. Community Board 1. Community Board 2. Community Board 3. Community Board 4. Thank you. Community Board 5.
Would members of the public please refrain from clapping? We want to be able to make sure we've heard whether people are present. Please proceed.
Community Board 6. Community Board 7. Thank you. Community Board 8. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. Community Board 13. They send their apologies. Community Board 14. Community Board 15. Thank you, Laura. Community Board 16. Community Board 17. Community Board 18. Counting us as 17. We can't count Angus because he's not a designee. Angus he answered for 5 because he's not a designee. So I can't count him. Angus Fisher.
Mr. Fisher for Community Board 4.
5.
5, sorry. Do you have a designee form? Would it be possible to email them real quick to see if you get a designee form over to us, please?
I think, yeah. I have 7 here. And 7, 16. He would make 17. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Counting him?
No, I'm not counting him.
He's 9.
I
And then
can
we have
count
7
him. We
here.
have 7 here.
Did anyone else show up after roll call? Any other member? All right. We have ascertained that there is not a quorum. We are a member short of a quorum. Because this is a Robert's Rules Assembly, I'll do this for the record, just to be clear. Under section 40.7, in the absence of a quorum, the board can do essentially one of 2 things. We can adjourn, or we can try to get a quorum. So I will leave it to the members present. The members present can vote on which of the 2 options to pursue. I will put the motion before the members present. Do the members present wish to adjourn? Does any member of the Borough Board have an objection to adjourning the meeting? Remember, you should object if you want there to be a roll call vote.
Chair, there's a public hearing on the agenda.
Still, Chairperson Camacho, your parliamentary inquiry, correct. This is a Roberts Rule Assembly. The Roberts Rules only allows those 2 options. We cannot proceed in the absence of a quorum, except to adjourn or to try to get a quorum. Sorry, Chairperson Camacho?
Is there any way we can make a recommendation so we can hear the president in regards to the presentation? And then maybe someone may come in and we can have when it's time to make the approvals for the recent agendas or whatever comes may be.
No, Chairperson Camacho, and I will read to you the relevant section. This is 40.9. The prohibition against transaction business in the absence of a quorum cannot be waived, even by unanimous consent, and a notice cannot be validly given. If there is important business that should not be delayed until the next regular meeting, the Assembly should fix the time for an adjourned meeting and then adjourn. If instead the members present take action informally in the absence of quorum, they do so at their own risk. You may not proceed. Chairperson Brown.
I know that there's a motion on the floor that hasn't been seconded yet. If I may offer, if that motion fails, if we can add a new motion with a time restraint.
Certainly. Is there any, Mr. Heredia?
Two members on their way.
What?
Two members are on their way.
Correct. That is correct. We are adjourned. Now, I will note for the benefit of, there is Chairperson Camacho, but I would like to provide the board with a little bit of information. It has been brought to my attention that there are two members on their way, which would confer a quorum. I can't verify that, but that is a piece of information that members might find to be helpful. Who else? Is that a member?
I don't think so. I'm gonna go and see if I can get in touch with Ms. Loman. I know she's at another meeting, and have her give me authorization if only for today for Atlas.
Any more discussion from Borough Board members on this threshold question? This is a threshold question on how to proceed. Just to remind members, I read that this is an assembly governed by the Roberts Rules, and the Roberts Rules give us two choices in this situation where we do not have a quorum. It is to adjourn, or it is to essentially try to obtain a quorum. I had asked on unanimous consent whether a member objects to adjourning, and I'm reminding the members that if a person feels that this is not appropriate for unanimous consent, they can object, and we will proceed to have a roll call vote on the question of adjournment. Does any Borough Board member object to adjourning this January 2024 Borough Board meeting? Chairperson Pena, is that an objection? All right, there being an objection, I'm going to request that I will call a roll call vote on the question of whether we should adjourn. Council District 33, Wrestler. Council District 34, Gutierrez. Council Member 34, Gutierrez? No. Council Member Hudson.
Mr. Chair, could you state the effect of each of the votes?
The effects of each of the notes, Chairperson Baptiste, is a no means this assembly will not adjourn in the absence of a quorum. I believe, just to be clear, Councilmember Hudson, that was a no. Councilmember District 36, Osei. District 37, Nurse. District 38, Aviles. District 39, Hanif. District 40, Joseph. District 41. I'll note for the record that a representative from Community Board number 6 has become present, thus meaning that unless anything changed, there is now a quorum, and we are able to proceed. For clarity of the record, and I'll try to do this expeditiously, I'll just confirm that we do, in fact, that nobody's departed since the roll call vote. So I'll call the roll again to confirm that we have a quorum. Council District 33, Wrestler. Council District 34, Gutierrez. Council District 35, Councilmember Hudson. Council District 36, Osei. Who's here? So would you just state the name? Council District 37, Nurse. Council District 38, Aviles. Council District 39, Hanif. Here. Council District 40, Joseph. Here. Council District 41, Mealy. Here. Council District 42, Mealy. Council District 42, Banks. Council District 43, Zhuang. Council District 44, Yeager. Council District 45, Louis. Council District 46, Narcisse. Council District 47, Brannan. Council District 48, Vernikoff. Council District 50, Carr. Community Board 1. Community Board 2. Community Board 3. Community Board 4.
Camacho presente.
Community Board 5. Community Board 6. Community Board 7. Community Board 8. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. Community Board 13. Community Board 14. Community Board 15. Community Board 16. Community Board 17. I apologize. Community Board 16. Community Board 17. And Community Board 18. We have a quorum. And welcome then officially to the proceedings of the January 2024 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting. Circulated to the Borough Board members was a copy of the proposed agenda for today's meeting. Did any member of the Borough Board not receive a copy of the agenda? Hearing that no one failed to receive a copy, does anyone object to adopting the proposed agenda circulated to the members as the agenda of this evening's meeting? Hearing no objections, the proposed agenda is adopted as the agenda. Secondly, along with the agenda, circulated first, proposed minutes for the November 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting, correcting or reflecting corrections that were brought to the attention of the Borough Board at the previous meeting. With the recirculated copy of the proposed minutes of the November 2023 Borough Board meeting, did any member not receive a copy of that? Hearing that no member failed to receive a copy, are there any objections to adopting the proposed minutes for the November 2023 Borough Board meeting as the official minutes of the November 2023 Borough Board meeting? Hearing and seeing no one indicating any objection, the proposed minutes for the November 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting are adopted as the official minutes of the November 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting. Also attached were proposed minutes for the December 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting. Did any member not receive a copy of the proposed December 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting minutes? Hearing that no one failed to receive a copy, do any Borough Board members have an objection to adopting the proposed December 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board minutes as the official minutes of the December 2023 Brooklyn Borough Board meeting? Hearing no objection and seeing no one indicating objection, they are so duly adopted. This allows us to proceed with the agenda to agenda item number 4, updates from Borough Hall. There are none, other than simply reminding you all of the application period for community boards. The community board applications period is open and it's available until February 19th of this year. No other updates. That brings us to the next agenda item, and that is unfinished business, and in particular, taking back up the discussion of the draft resolution of Brooklyn Borough Board number 2 of 2022 related to the Public Officers Law. And on this one, I have a presentation to briefly walk you all through. So, as mentioned at the December 2023 Borough Board meeting, yes. So you all can't really see this that well. The short of it is, for the Borough Board members, on the table outside was a handout that was directed particularly to the Borough Board members. I'll try to keep this very clear to remind you all of the issue and what are the next steps to be taken with it for the Borough Board to consider. The situation that was raised in connection with the Borough Board adopting a hybrid meeting procedure is the difficulty in obtaining members or quorums and having people show up, with the situation where at least a quorum of community boards and bodies like this must be present in person. There are two current options under the law to deal with this situation. The first, which ends on June 30th of this year, is the hybrid procedures that you all are aware of. I just gave you all the basic gist of it, but the short of it is you can have some remote participation under an expiring section of the law. The problem is that at least a quorum of the body's membership has to be present. The other possibility, option that currently exists under the law, is a procedure, and that's what you can't see very well, but I'm going to pretty much describe it, and as is our custom, we'll circulate this presentation to you all later, is since the year 2000, a section of the law has already allowed individuals, members of bodies, to attend through the use of video conferencing. That has long been on the books, and that existed before the pandemic. However, chances are that you've never used this and you are not even aware of it because the New York State Committee on Open Government has interpreted this, and they have required that three things happen in order to be able to participate by video conferencing. The first thing is a community board would have to give out a notice that says, we're going to use video conferencing. Then the notice would have to also state each location where members, including those participating by video conference, are calling in from. And they'd have to add to the notice a statement that any member of the public has the right to attend the meeting at any of these locations. What does that mean concretely? Community board members would have to have their videos on, they're already supposed to, but also they would have to put the location from where they were video conferencing. So if they're calling in from their homes, they would have to put that onto the notice, and they would have to let members of the public come to their homes. So that's probably why that is not used enough. So what we came up with, what was discussed back in 2022 and is in the form of the resolution, a draft of which, copies of the draft of which were put on the table, is an official request from this body that New York State amend the open meetings law and essentially create what's called, or think of it as parity with corporations. All types of corporations are already allowed to meet fully by video conferencing. And so that the next page of this guidance gives you the laws that allow for video conferencing for different types of corporations. Business corporations can do so under Section 708 of the Business Corporation Law. Education corporations can do so to the degree which, largely because they are governed by the nonprofit corporate law, in part, and the nonprofit, or the not-for-profit corporation law, rather, allows this. The next section shows the section from the not-for-profit corporation law, the nonprofit corporation law, that allows those meetings to be fully electronic. So can religious corporations. Religious corporations are houses of worship. They are allowed to do things entirely by video conferencing. Transportation corporations, that's like utilities, public utilities like Con Ed are among those, right? So what the draft resolution does is ask Albany to treat community boards like corporations and allow for them to conduct their meetings fully by video conferencing, fully remotely, like other corporations. So we brought this back up because this is something for us to take up. The legislative session in Albany has resumed, and so it having resumed, this is the time for trying to push that. And the other reason is, as imperfect and unsatisfactory as the hybrid procedures are, prior June 30th. So one way or another, the situation is going to be less favorable from what is sort of being aimed for. So here are the next steps to sort of flag for us to discuss tonight and entertain any decisions or how to move forward. But some of the next steps where we left off is, as you'll see in the draft, there's a comment about getting data from you all. When we had this initial conversation in 2022, the Borough Board, the members of the Borough Board who are representatives of community boards said they had data showing that there was more public participation with video conferencing or remotely. So that's something to want to compile. Next, we have a decision to make. One decision that we could do also is, does this body want to ask us here at the Office of Brooklyn Borough President to reach out to the Committee on Open Government and ask whether the age of live streaming changes its advice? That thing that I described to you that the Committee on Open Government requires if you're going to use the video conferencing procedure that's been around since the year 2000, that guidance comes from two decisions. Those decisions were issued by the Committee on Open Government in 2013 and 2017. That does not reflect a change in the law in a new universe that was finally reflected in a change in the law in 2016, which recognizes live streaming. So there is some question as to whether the universe of live streaming means you can have a remote meeting, folks can just participate remotely, they don't have to go to the homes or other locations where folks are video conferencing. But that's something that this body can decide whether they want us to do or any other member of the Borough Board. The next step after that would be working on the resolution, probably needs some edits, there needs to be some language refining, and then voting on it. One question to talk about is, should we form a committee of the Borough Board to talk about this? And the last step would also be reaching out for a legislative sponsor in both the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate. There have been efforts involving, I believe, Assembly Member Rosenthal, in particular in Manhattan, who's been working on some type of this legislation, but nonetheless, that's another initiative. And that raises the question, should that also be assigned to a committee, right? So in some of the next steps, data, deciding whether you want us to write to the Committee on Open Government and just get a clarification as to whether you could use the video conferencing procedures that have been around since 2000 quite freely in the age of live streaming, live Zoom meetings and the like. Then we need to edit the resolution and decide whether to adopt it, and think about whether there should be outreach to legislative sponsors, should there be committees. Any questions about that unfinished business agenda item from the Borough Board members before or any further discussion of this item? We brought it back up just to remind you that we had talked about that and to also flag for you the hybrid universe ends, currently slated to end June 30th, so something is going to need to be done about this. Chairperson Camacho, CB4.
Just curious what you were saying was, or that all we wanted to do was to make sure that the people that are on board members that have an immune or they're watching their kids that want to participate and can't come to the office to be part of the quorum. Because as you see in the charter, it says you must be present in order to count in the quorum in the meeting, even in committee. So some board members, if they got COVID or they're sick or they got to watch a bit, they can get a waiver, but they don't count in the quorum. So I feel that if they're there and you see them and hear them, that they should be counted in the quorum for us to continue to do our work.
So Chairperson Foster, just to be clear, that is currently allowed under the law that expires on June 30th. Just to be clear, the discussion we had back in 2022 was broader. The Borough Board expressed a view that let's just stick with essentially the way things were done during COVID and have fully remote meetings, or have the ability to do fully remote meetings and have them count. That's the discussion that we're bringing back up. It's broader than what you're describing, but just to be clear, what you've described is already allowed, but that legal provision is expiring. Last legislative session, the state changed the temporary, it's essentially section 103-A of the Public Officers Law. They changed it to allow individuals who are in those circumstances you described to count toward quorum by participating remotely, but this is a broader discussion. Chairperson Pena, Chairperson Pena, followed by Chairperson Brown.
Have you done a public hearing? Have you asked the public?
Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend, or we ask the Committee on Open Government to make a determination and to ask for a legislative sponsor to the Assembly and Senate to make amendments to the Open Meetings Law.
Chairperson Pena has moved two parts to ask for clarification Committee on Open Government and to seek a legislative sponsor for broadening out the law. Is it second? Any objection from members of the Borough Board? Or actually, I'll pause and say, is there any discussion? I do see Chairperson Baptiste.
Just to make sure I'm clear on the question, on the process. So we're looking at asking the Committee on Open Government, and then after that, we're looking at just doing seeking a legislative sponsor. Are we not going to have a committee before that? Because there may be some tweaks that I think might want to be discussed.
Do you have an amendment to?
Yes, if I could, I would like to amend that, if it's possible, to create a committee of the Borough Board to revise the document.
Chairperson Pena, would you accept that as a friendly amendment? Yes. All right, so as stated, it would be a motion. Chairperson Baptiste, would you clarify what you make the motion as amended then? I don't want to speak for you.
Seek the opinion from the government to create a committee of the Borough Board to revise the resolution. And as part of the option of that resolution, seeks legislative sponsor.
And Chairperson Pena, would you accept that as a friendly amendment? All right. Is that second? Chairperson Brown. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Objections to adopting the motion to seek clarification from the Committee on Open Government as to whether video conferencing in the era of live streaming is possible without privacy invasions, and to form a committee of the Brooklyn Borough Board to work on the legislation, and after so doing, to seek legislative sponsors. Is there an objection to adopting that motion? Hearing no objection, the motion is adopted. And that concludes discussion of agenda item number 5. That brings us to agenda item number 6, communications and reports. It is a public hearing item that I understand to be so I'm going to address this situation in terms of public hearing. First to answer the question about public comment. Public comment on the other matters will be dealt with principally during the other business section of the agenda for today. We're at the communications and reports section now. That's item number 6. And if anyone has the ability to see, I do know it, I apologize for it being in small print, but for those in the room, up front on the screen is the agenda. So we're at this item, the public hearing item, and it involves some procedures that I want to go over with first before we sort of call the item and move on with it. This is a public hearing item that arises under Section 200 of the Charter, supplemented by the City Planning Rules in Title 62. The way that this hearing works is this is for a non-ULURP item. It's on a application of the City Planning Commission exercising authority it's possessed since 1938, since that charter is carried over. So how this will work procedurally, given the procedures that govern, is that there is both a presentation portion, then there will be questions. I, the chair, am designating the Borough Board members to ask questions. Then we'll have dismissal of the Department of City Planning, and then we'll have a public hearing item. All members who wish to testify who've signed up, we'll call them in that order, and folks will have 2 minutes to testify on the item. I want to make everyone as clear on the procedures. Stage 1, presentation. Stage 2, questions from the Brooklyn Borough Board members. Stage 3, the public hearing, where folks who've signed up will be allowed to testify on the matter, and you'll have 2 minutes, and we will hear testimony from as many people as who wish to speak. But in order to allow that, we'll have 2 minutes. 2 other procedural.
The public was told by the borough president's office that the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm not aware of that, but I'll clarify that it will be 2 minutes. I want to clarify 2 other points about the procedure that I think are important to understand. Under Section 200 of the Charter, as supplemented by the rules, this is a hearing before the Brooklyn Borough Board. The Office of Brooklyn Borough President is a member of the Brooklyn Borough Board under Section 85 of the Charter, but we also have an independent role in the land use process that the City Planning Commission expressed on this particular item that I'll read into the record momentarily. We have a role that allows us to weigh in. This office, the Office of Brooklyn Borough President, held a public hearing about that already. Similarly, the City Planning Commission will have its own public hearing on this matter. That will take place in February. So this is a hearing by the Brooklyn Borough Board, and it's under, as I said, Section 200 of the Charter. Having cleared up those pieces of procedure, I'll now read into the public hearing item. It is a hearing to review a proposed citywide text amendment proposed by the Department of City Planning, known as the City of Yes Economic Opportunity Proposal. The proposal purports to remove limitations on businesses and support thriving commercial centers and retail streets. The proposed text amendment would facilitate the repurposing of existing non-residential space, providing businesses with additional zoning flexibility to locate and to expand. I'm going to call the Department of City Planning to present. Dais is yours, or dais is yours, rather.
Thank you. Sir, if I may have a clicker.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us this evening. My name is Matt Waskevitz. I am a planner with the New York City Department of City Planning, and I'm joined by my colleagues here in the Brooklyn office, Alex Sommer and Danielle DeSerbo. I have a presentation about 20 minutes in length, so we'll have plenty of time for questions from the Borough Board members following that. City of Yes for Economic Opportunity is one of 3 zoning initiatives that we have to modernize and update our city zoning resolution to support small businesses, create affordable housing, and to promote sustainability. It's part of Mayor Eric Adams' vision for a more inclusive and equitable City of Yes. The first part of City of Yes is City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality, and it was recently adopted by the City Council and is going to help New York City meet its ambitious goals of reducing carbon emissions 80% by 2050 by making it easier for our zoning to green our buildings, our streets, and our city. City of Yes for Economic Opportunity is currently in the Community Board referral part of the public review process and is the second in sequence of citywide reforms to our zoning. And then third and finally is City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, which is an inclusive citywide approach to our city's housing crisis, aims to expand and diversify our city's housing supply. And that is due to enter into the formal public review process later in the spring. But before we dive into the policy itself, I think it's helpful to go over what zoning governs when it comes to small businesses in New York City. Zoning, which for the most part has not been updated when it comes to business regulations in over 60 years, defines hundreds of what are called uses or business types, and it sorts them by zoning district and regulates things like what kinds of business activity you can do in a space and how big you can be. And because in many cases this zoning hasn't been updated since 1961, there are many outdated and often counterproductive rules and regulations on this business activity that make it very difficult in many cases to start a small business, to operate that small business, and to grow that small business. Knowing that our zoning for small businesses was in need of a refresh, we've been on a listening tour for well over a year and a half now, speaking with small business owners, organizations like chambers of commerce, business improvement districts, industrial service providers, other stakeholders whose work it is day in, day out, working with small businesses, helping them navigate the city's complex rules, and trying to understand the ways in which our zoning is getting in the way. There are many sets of regulations that govern business activity in New York City. Zoning is only one small part of it, but the ways in which our zoning is holding our small businesses back, we want to make sure we addressed that. And out of this work, created zoning that is more simple, more adaptable, and more modern. At the same time as we were starting to understand the zoning barriers, we were speaking with community members, and we held more than 5 open to the public info sessions before we even began the public review process. This was something new that city planning was doing, just to make sure that we were capturing everything that we could, because of course, residents and small businesses are all part of the same neighborhood. So we wanted to make sure that as we were developing these proposals, that we were hearing from many members of community boards as well. And so a lot of what we heard from these conversations were that, let's face it, New York City can be a very challenging place to run a small business, and oftentimes you run into frustrating or slow or just simply illogical regulations. And all of that red tape can make investing in businesses hard. That in turn contributes to a city that's less vibrant. Fewer people able to start businesses, more vacant storefronts, more businesses that have to leave their neighborhood or the city overall just to expand. And these are citywide zoning proposals, and we have a citywide crisis. Citywide, we have over 17,000 vacant storefronts. We have tens of millions of square feet of empty office space. We know that this has a direct and immediate effect on the city's bottom line. It affects the ability for us to fund services that affect quality of life. And so the ways in which our zoning is contributing to this empty space, we want to make sure that we're addressing them here. We have 4 goals for this work. The first, we want to make it easier for businesses to find space and grow. So the main way we propose to do this is by lifting zoning barriers so businesses can locate closer to their customers. Second, we want to boost growing industries by reducing obstacles for emerging business types. These are types of businesses that didn't exist in 1961 or have changed a lot since then, and so we want to make sure that these emerging business types can thrive across our city and create good jobs. Third, we want to enable more business-friendly streetscapes. We know that business activity isn't just what happens within a space, but how a business interacts with its surroundings, and so we want to make sure that we're contributing to more safe, active, and walkable streets. Fourth, and finally, we want to create new opportunities for businesses to locate and grow in the future by creating new kinds of zoning tools, all of which go through public review and could boost job growth and business expansion across Brooklyn. Within the 4 goals, there are 18 proposals. I'm going to go through them at a very high level. I would encourage you to check out a lot more detail we have on our website, nyc.gov/yes economic opportunity. At the end of my presentation, I'll go a little bit more into those resources, but everything I mention here is on our website, along with many, many more resources to understand each of the proposals. Goal number 1, making it easier for businesses to find space and grow, lifting zoning barriers so that businesses can locate close to their customers, because in most cases, our zoning rules haven't been updated since the early 60s, and it shows. You have zoning that does not reflect today's economy and does not respond to it. It contributes to a city and an economy that are less resilient and able to adapt to changing circumstances. So our first 6 proposals do exactly that. We want to make our zoning more simple, more adaptable, and more modern so our small businesses can more easily locate and grow. Proposal 1, today, storefronts that are deemed non-conforming, they face an arbitrary 2-year time clock in some places to reactivate or else they have to remain vacant. This is a direct contributor to storefront vacancy in our city, and so in the places where this 2-year cap exists, we propose to remove it so that vacant storefronts can become reoccupied. Proposal 2. In many places of the city, you have similar zoning districts that are located along the same street, or they might be located on opposite sides of the street, and yet the regulations allow for different kinds of businesses. And this is particularly true along many of our neighborhood corridors that are typically zoned either C1 or C2. You have businesses that might be allowed on one side of the street, not allowed on the other side of the street. And this makes no sense, and it's a relic of the 1960s, and so we want to make sure that our neighborhood commercial districts are much more the same, allow the same mix of businesses across our C1 and C2 districts, and similarly allow the same mix of business types across our office districts, these being our C4, C5, and C6 designations. Proposal 3. Despite changes in technology and a vastly different economy, our city zoning rules are stuck in the 60s with how they treat many kinds of small-scale clean manufacturing businesses. So we want to allow for small-scale clean production, things like pottery studios, bakeries, coffee roasters, jewelry makers, microbreweries, apparel designers, 3D printers, and the like, to be able to locate in commercial districts, in storefront space or in office space, provided that they meet stringent environmental standards that we've adopted and had in place for decades in places where you have light industrial uses being allowed to locate in the same building as residences. Proposal 4. If one of these clean production businesses in the last proposal wanted to go into an empty office building, today they would face rules that might require them to add additional loading docks just to be able to locate, even if they don't need them. And this could require them to have to cut a loading dock or two into the side of the building. Maybe the building can't physically accommodate that. So this contributes both to vacancy in offices, but it also contributes to buildings not being able to adapt over time. So what we want to do here is allow for older buildings to change over time, not mandating additional loading docks and require a business tear apart a ground floor just to be able to provide new loading. Proposal 5. Zoning today allows for many kinds of buildings to have a mix of residential and commercial uses, but our zoning sometimes prevents these businesses and residences from being able to locate above the ground floor. Now, this limits options for new buildings that are built that contain a mix of both residential and non-residential activities, and it also limits options for older buildings to adapt over time. This is particularly true for our aging office building stock, and there's a rule in place called the stacking rules, and it means you can have commercial and then residential, but you cannot have commercial above residential. And so this makes it hard to adapt buildings, partially convert them to residences over time. We want to enable that kind of change here, provided that there's physical separation between residential and non-residential parts of the building. We think that's really important for safety and for sound. Proposal 6. Our zoning is full of terms like taxidermy, typewriter repair, and it hasn't been updated to reflect things like cell phone repair, the kinds of business types that reflect today's economy. This can make it very hard if you're a small business to know where you can locate, what you can do in your space. You might have to go to the Department of Buildings, spend 6 months in a process just to clarify, oh yeah, I can locate on a storefront space along a commercial street. So we're updating the terms that we have in our zoning to reflect today's economy, not the economy of 60 years ago. And so we're creating more simple, more modern terms to classify businesses. This is a place where I'll call out a resource we have on our website. We've translated each and every current use, there are hundreds in our zoning today, to our proposed framework in the future. So if you do taxidermy for a living, never fear, you still know where you can locate. Proposal 2, or excuse me, goal 2, emerging business types. So these are emerging businesses that are highlighted because they're not the only emerging businesses across our city, but there are ones where we've identified a zoning barrier that is getting in the way, or just some ambiguity that we want to clarify to help businesses thrive. Proposal 7. Businesses that operate indoor agriculture, such as vertical farming, they face uncertainty today in today's zoning rules. So you can do growing of agricultural products in a greenhouse in any commercial area, But you can't do that exact same thing in a building right below the greenhouse or next to the greenhouse. And so we want to make it clear that if you can have agriculture in a greenhouse, you can do it inside a building as well. Proposal 8. Life sciences laboratories face confusing and outdated rules that often slow the development of new facilities. So we want to make it clear that if labs don't have the potential for environmental hazards, they are appropriate for office settings. We think this is really important for this industry to continue to grow and thrive and create new kinds of vaccines, therapeutics, medical devices, the things that New Yorkers need and that our world needs going into the future. Proposal 9. Any restaurant or bar in the city can have live music today in any commercial district up to 200 people. However, if you want to be able to have something else in that same space, say have people dance to that live music, that's often prohibited. You're also prohibited often from having comedy or open mic nights in the same space where, again, today you can already have live music. So our proposal for nightlife is simple. If you can have live music in the space, you can have people dance in that same space. And this would do away with the last relics of the discriminatory cabaret laws that for decades were used in a way to shut down businesses where people were dancing. Now, the current administration supports nightlife. But with these rules on the books,
Can we have order? Would there please be order, please? I assure members of the public we will be here for so long as individuals wish to testify. Please, may we get through the presentation so we can get to the public hearing item. Please proceed.
thank you. Okay. But we want to make sure that nightlife businesses are being good neighbors. And what that means is that clear regulations, it will be more easy for the city to understand, interpret, and enforce when a nightlife business is not being a good neighbor. The status quo of ambiguity does not work for anyone. And so what we want to make sure we're doing here is making the rules more clear on what you can and cannot do in a bar or restaurant when it comes to live entertainment. Proposal 10 is around experiential businesses and amusements. So our zoning, like many different ways, it allows for things like a tennis court, because that was around in the 1960s. But it doesn't allow for something like virtual reality, children's arcades. And as a result, it often restricts these kinds of activities to either Coney Island or one of the city's industrial areas, because in our city's industrial areas, the rules are a lot more clear that you can locate. And so you see these kinds of businesses locate there as a result. What we want to do is both simplify and modernize the way that we treat experiential businesses, allow them at a small scale along neighborhood commercial corridors, and at a larger scale in the city's office districts. Proposal 11. Many New Yorkers start their business in the home. This was especially true during the pandemic when you saw many New Yorkers working from home for the first time. That's continued. In our zoning, it allows for a wide range of home business types, including lawyers, jewelry makers, and music teachers, but the zoning hasn't kept up with the way that people work from home, and it prohibits specific occupations like barbers or interior decorators, and other restrictions that hold back business creation. What we're proposing here is to enable entrepreneurship with modern rules for home-based businesses, while also keeping in place the existing safeguards that we have to ensure that these home-based businesses are being good neighbors. Goal 3. We want to enable more business-friendly streetscapes and foster more active, safe, and walkable streets. So economic vibrancy isn't just about what happens inside a building, but how that business interacts with everything around it. And so the inconsistency that we see today in our streetscape and urban design regulations, and in some cases a total absence of zoning rules, can make it hard to curb some of the worst outcomes of a business activity, spilling out into the sidewalk or surrounding streets, and generally creating unsafe or untenable conditions for both residents and businesses. So these 3 proposals are designed to address the ways that our businesses can encourage more active, safe, and walkable streets. Proposal 12. Today you have streetscape conditions, things like long blank walls or strip mall type parking. It can break up a retail street, and that can lead to conditions that are unsafe for people walking past, unsafe for cyclists, and can lead to traffic congestion. So what we're proposing here is to create more consistent and easy to understand rules for commercial ground floor design, ones that are more responsive in areas with greater pedestrian activity and more relaxed in the city's more auto-oriented corridors. Proposal 13. Auto servicing businesses are typically treated as industrial ones, and they're located far from retail streets and residential neighborhoods. But our zoning today has some exceptions that exist for things like tire repair. And often, as a result, some of these activities can spill out into sidewalks, into neighboring streets, and this creates safety concerns for everyone, not to mention storage of private vehicles in places where they shouldn't be. So what we're doing here is to propose to rationalize and consolidate how we think about these kinds of businesses. Make clear that if you are doing heavy auto body repair, you are appropriate for industrial areas, and you have to be licensed by the state DMV. And if you are doing light auto repair, you can locate, but after you go through a site plan review with the Board of Standards and Appeals. Proposal 14. If you're a post office, you can locate anywhere. These are vital neighborhood hubs for package delivery and pickup. But if you're not the federal government, you can't do the same kind of activity in our zoning today. And so what you see as a result are very large facilities in industrial areas and nothing in between those facilities and what you would see delivering packages to someone's home or business. What we're proposing here is to create a new kind of business, kind of modeled after a post office, in fact, where you can have parcel delivery and pickup and a space to have these kinds of neighborhood-based hubs for more safe and sustainable deliveries to occur. Proposal, or goal 4, our fourth and final goal, and then I'll finish up. Creating new opportunities for businesses to open in the future, establishing new kinds of zoning tools that can boost job growth and business expansion. Our zoning resolution, it contains many kinds of tools that can be used to initiate a public review or discretionary process to change an area's underlying zoning regulations. These are special permits from the Board of Standards and Appeals or the City Planning Commission authorizations and special permits, as well as the zoning districts themselves. So as we're seeking to modernize our city's zoning to support small business location growth, we also need to update this zoning toolkit. Ensure that businesses have better access to pathways to enable their expansion or adaptation in the future. So our last 4 proposals, none of these create new kinds of as of right or without discretion approval, but these are new kinds of zoning tools that could be used for the future economic success of our city. Proposal 15. Many large-scale residential developments are zoned as residence districts, and this means that retail, services, and makerspace cannot easily locate, and it places residents of these developments further away from goods and services. So this proposal creates a new kind of zoning tool that could allow up to a small amount of commercial space in existing or new construction on a large campus, giving residents access to basic necessities or space to grow a business. Proposal 16. Some portions of New York City are not within walking distance of a local retail corridor, and zoning has no pathways that could allow for a new neighborhood-serving business to open. So what we're creating here is a new kind of zoning pathway where a business could initiate a process to locate a new store on the corner of an intersection at a small scale, provided that that store does not generate any environmental concerns or traffic congestion. Proposal 17. In some instances, businesses lack options for waivers for non-kinds of zoning categories. For example, a clothing store might want to expand on an empty second-floor office, or might want to expand to take over the empty storefront next to it, and finds in both cases zoning rules prevent them from doing so. Same thing for many kinds of film production. They would like to build a loft, sort of box-like structure, and there are certain zoning rules that limit the shape of that building. We want to expand the zoning toolkit so businesses could initiate a process that could allow them to, on a case-by-case basis, plead their case to waive certain zoning rules. And then Proposal 18, in some instances, it's our zoning districts themselves and not the discretionary pathways to modify them that are obsolete. So this is particularly true of our city's M district zoning designations. And currently, you have low-density options, you have physical design rules, lots of parking and loading that can make it impossible to build new kinds of industrial space and loft-like buildings, even in areas where they already exist. So what we're doing here is creating a range of new zoning districts, a core district, a transition district, and a growth district that could expand the zoning toolkit for the future. So with that, I'll close with a minute on process. So we are in the community board referral part of the the formal public review. We have a public hearing at the City Plan Commission that is set for January 24th. We welcome your attendance and testimony, either in person, online, or written sent to us. We'll accept testimony up until February 15th. After that point, there will be a City Planning Commission vote, followed by the proposals heading over to the City Council for consideration. And I want to emphasize that even though the public hearing at the City Plan Commission is on January 24th, boards still have until at least the beginning of February to provide their recommendations and vote on these proposals. Just because the public hearing is happening before the beginning of February does not mean that your proposals won't be counted, they won't be considered, they very much will be. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Resources on our website, nyc.gov/yes, economic opportunity. We've taken a look at what storefront vacancy and jobs look like in every community district in the city. Each of the 18 proposals I just went through at far greater detail on our website, as well as for those more technically inclined, the actual zoning text itself. We have created annotations where we have hundreds of comments describing, in many cases, what we're doing, or in some cases, what we're not doing. We're moving things around. And then lastly, I mentioned this with Proposal 6. We've translated every single use in its current form to what we're proposing, and then back from the proposal to the current zoning. And then lastly, one more resource. We know this is a big proposal. There's many components to it. And so this is an optional resource. It's on our website as well, and every community board member should have it. Members of the public should feel free to send it to us as well. And this is a worksheet that we've used to provide a way to structure feedback that we want on these proposals. We want your help in improving these proposals, making sure that they're responsive to your concerns and your needs and priorities. And so for each of the 18, we're providing space for you to indicate whether you support or don't support, or what kinds of changes you'd like to see. With that, I'll turn things back over, and thank you for the time, and happy to answer questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions from the Brooklyn Borough Board members? Chairperson Witherspoon.
Yes. I mean, I do have a couple of concerns, but I forgot which number was the proposed amendment, but it speaks of reviving closed storefronts in residential areas. That doesn't seem problematic, but it seems like there's a concern that stores and businesses can just open up in buildings that weren't designed for that. And then when we got to 16, then you speak of those spaces that you're going to allow a process where stores like bodegas and I guess maybe small places can have the opportunity to have a store. So I just would like to get some clarification on that, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
So proposal 1, which is related to existing, what we call legal non-conforming stores. So these are stores, there are thousands and thousands of them across the city. They are located in a residence district, but they were active commercial storefronts prior to the 1961 rezoning, or any time we changed the zoning. And so under our non-conformance regulations are allowed to continue. And in many residence districts, namely R5 to R7, there is no time limit on that reactivation. In fact, many parts of Brooklyn fall within that R5 to R7. So what we're proposing in number 1 here is in the places that don't have that same, or places that do have a time limit on reactivation. So that's R1 to R4 and R8 to R10, extend the same provisions that we have in that middle range of density, that R5 to R7. So proposal 16 around corner stores is about where you don't have an existing non-conforming storefront. It's still a residence district, but we see 2 main use cases for this. The first is, let's say you have a non-conforming store and they want to do something to modify what they're doing. So you might have let's say a bookstore, and in the future they might want to become a coffee roastery, because proposal 3 might allow for that if they meet the environmental rules. But under non-conformance, they can't do it because that would mean going up the intensity of your use group. So what proposal 16 would allow them for them to do is to go through that environmental review, to go through the community board process, but it could allow them to change the use in a place where they can't today. So that's one main use case we see. And the second one is Let's say that same store burns down, or there's a flood or something else. Nonconformance regulations are very clear, and DOB interpretation and enforcement is very clear that that store can't come back. And we saw this a bunch during Sandy. We see this with fires, unfortunately, somewhat regularly. And so that's another place in which we think that Proposal 16 could be useful. Does that help?
It does help, but what's prevalent in the public arena?
Is that spaces are going to be created just in Miller blocks and homes and, that is what is out there. So
Yeah.
that's, I think people need to hear
Yeah.
and be clear about what that means. Is that a possibility? Is that part of a plan that you have?
I understand your concern.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from with this. And to speak sort of in the context of your district a little bit, for example, along Kingston Avenue, you have a C1 overlay. And then if you continue going down Kingston, that C1 overlay goes away. It's a residence district. And there are many kinds of non-conforming storefronts along that residence district. And essentially, they are very limited with what they can do in the future. And as a result, you see an awful lot of bars and restaurants because they're use group 6. They can't really change uses. They can't really adapt what they're doing. And so part of the rationale and where we really see the benefit of proposal number 16 is exactly for those circumstances where you have an individual business, they want to change what they're doing, they have the support of the community, because these are not as of right. And right now in zoning, they have no path. They have to go through a full area-wide rezoning, and that's just a simply impossible high bar for many small businesses to achieve. So yes, to answer your question directly, you could have a business that isn't along Kingston, isn't along an already what appears to be commercial corridor, but they would have a pretty high bar to meet, in part because they would have to justify why in the middle of a residential area they want to do what they're doing. So I would encourage you, it's in section 75-11 of our proposed zoning, where we've laid out the exact language that the City Planning Commission would consider in whether they would consider to grant this authorization. And there's specific language around there about what the surrounding context is of that application. And so if the surrounding context is residential, they have a much higher bar to meet than if the surrounding context is a bunch of other storefronts. If you don't think that's strong enough, this is where we want your recommendations.
Chairperson Morgan, followed by Chairperson Camacho, and then I can Ms. Thompson.
Hi, good evening. Janice Morgan from Community Board 16. So I think this is a lot. I understand the frustration of the members of the public that are here because I guess my bigger question is, what are the direct benefits to hyperlocal communities? Many years ago, there was mandatory inclusionary housing. There was a zoning change around that. There's the hotel text amendment. And so what I would like to see is a crosswalk of all of these different changes to the zoning that has happened in the last several years, and then what is the impact to the local community? Because it sounds like this stuff is contradicting one change. It's like you made a change, that didn't work, and so now let's go and make a change on top of that. But we're not going to go back and say we were wrong the first time. We're going to now just try to do something slick, and then it'll impact the local community. Additionally, I just want to bring, how are bids going to be supported by these types of changes? You have city bike, you have car shares. What are going to be the benefits to local communities to help with streetscape? What's going to be the revenue sources that are given to local communities to help to make sure that we're not getting, or homeowners are not getting the responsibility of cleaning up streets or getting fines for things that businesses are doing? Because we already have businesses that don't maintain their sidewalks, and we have to pick up the slack as residents and use our quality time that should be spent with families trying to get business owners to properly do business in our community and respect our communities. So I think until all of those things are properly addressed and you show us how this won't become individual burdens to the people who live in the communities, then this doesn't really work for us.
Thank you. Thank you both for your questions and for your perspective on this. And I share your concerns that the zoning is only one piece of this. And zoning can only do so much. And I want to recognize that there are a number of ways in which where the zoning ends and other ways in which we need to think more holistically about how we support our communities and small businesses. So I just want to say that at the outset, at the Department of City Planning, we control zoning, but we are part of a city agency family that thinks more about these holistic challenges. And so to answer your first question first, around benefits, it would take me another half an hour to go through each of the 18 and how it would benefit you, but I'll just use one anecdote as an example. If you are a business that wasn't a business type that wasn't around 60 years ago, and you want to locate, and I'll use the example of cell phone repair. You can go through thousands of pages of our zoning resolution, and you will not find terminology defining where a cell phone repair shop can go. You just won't find it. And so what businesses have to do today is usually one of two things. Either they hire a land use attorney who can help clarify for them that they can locate, or they take their chances. And what we hear, speaking with many kinds of business improvement districts, people who help small businesses, is that oftentimes when an entrepreneur takes their chances, they may discover 6 months, 2 years, 10 years later that they actually couldn't be where they thought they could be. They've signed a lease. They get slapped with a fine. It's a fundamentally inequitable system when the zoning isn't clear on what you can do and where you can operate. And so what these proposals holistically are designed to do is to modernize our zoning, level that playing field, make it easier for anyone to understand. I'm not going to say that the zoning will suddenly become very easy. It's a complicated document. It's a technical document. We have lots of resources at the department to help folks in navigating the zoning. Our zoning help desk for one of them. But the goal of this proposal broadly is to make that zoning more easy to understand and to address. And that is a direct benefit that everyone, whether you're a resident, a community board member, a small business owner, an elected official, anyone, day one, if these are adopted, that will be a direct benefit to everyone.
Chairperson Camacho.
Well, I'm not a fan of yours. But you said, we did my plan. You want to do my plan? If you come to see before, I'll give you a package of my plan. And you have my plan. We did. Yeah, I know. You shaking your head like a puppet, because I know you're a puppet. We had a plan. C-Before had a plan 10 years ago. When the other clown, Mayor de Blasio, said, no, baby, we want to build. Bushwick is dying. And you guys are killing it. Since 1977, Broadway ain't seen a lot. All of a sudden, we're calling it catering for business owners. Latinos and blacks don't rent there. $40,000 rent. You're a clown when you disrespect us this way. We want Bushwick to change, but we want to change with it. Don't change without the community. Don't disrespect us that way. That is the plan. The Bushwick Community Plan. 10 years ago, we handed Mayor de Blasio a booklet plan. You know it. The commissioner know it. Eric Adams, that was the president here, know it. Give me our plan, the community plan. Elected official. It's election, baby. It's going to be election. You guys are going to be in the hot seat. I'm telling you now. Our people are dying. The people that made the communities what it is now, not the people that live there, that paying the $5,000 rent, we are. Well, I see the old lady that lives in a car, that lived in the community 82 years. Where is this whole respect? You guys are supposed to be representing us, not the other way around. You tell the mayor, come to Bushwick. I'm tired of him going over there with the nightlight commissioner, Silva. the nightlife, ride share, but nothing for the hood. Everything is for money. Where in that plan said the community's input? Where is that plan said we sat there and we built? Every community board is different in its own way. Every community board wants something different in its own way. All right? And that's what you need to do. You need to come to them. And you need to hear them. And you need to hear our cry. I don't get paid for this. But this is my community. I'm 63. I'm tired of seeing how people 80 and 90 years old that made this community what it is, being disrespected by city agencies that we pay you for our tax dollars. Now what you need to do, tell your mayor, your boss, that Mr. Camacho knows me very well. I've been through 4 borough boards here. So I'm not your kid. I've been 34 years, 37 years on this board. So don't play no games with me. Bushwick has a community board plan. Anybody want to get it? Any of your community board chairs want to get involved? Let's get involved. What I want to do at the end of this, I want to make a recommendation. And I'm going to put it on the table, and we're all going to turn around and we're all going to address it. Because you're not coming to 18 community boards and disrespect us. You're coming to tell us what we want, each one of us. Because you know what's on our plan. Where's the housing? You're talking about business. The business we can on is nightlife. We spot nightlife and 24-hour food store. What happened to the bodegas we had before, the Puerto Ricans and the Latinos? What happened? It's gone, we no more. The rent is $40,000. You think I'm gonna get $40,000? That's why these kids are robbing these stores and taking the stuff from the stores. Why do you think they're doing it? If you would invest on us and my kids that gotta move out because they can't afford to live here, and write in your plan that those stores are gonna be for people that live in the community and gonna get what the community wants, housing, sneaker stores, something for themselves, and live in the community where they can go. You building high, you're getting ready to 2-family homes, you're taking away our parking spots. What happened to us? Listen, you wanna know? Let me tell you, you're a smart dude. You're a smart dude, right? I know you are. Let's tell you what the car pays. Let me tell you what my car pays. Insurance, a mechanic, registration. We pay for that. It's not free. We get jobs, we create jobs. You take it away from us, I'm disabled, how am I gonna buy more food? I can only carry what I can carry. So you're inventing what Adam Adams want. No, tell them to do this shit in his house, in front of his house, where he lives. Tell him to do all the nightlife. We'll knock it down. I'll change the zoning. All right, we'll do it there. And he could do all his party there. And we'll go and shit in this community and come back home 2 hours, like they do to us. Is that right? So I'm sorry I take your time, but you need to come back to me. And I know you'll be with us on the 17th. And you're going to hear 95,000 people tell you, that Bushwick community plan better get going. Everybody got a rezoning and said Bushwick. We did ours. We spent money out of our budget to do ours. These clowns didn't approve it. City council, what's going on? Y'all got no backbone? What happened to our people? Why are we doing this to us? Why? Why are we fighting for the same thing we fight 20 years ago? We got to stop this.
Chairperson Camacho, thank you. Ms. Thompson for Councilmember Lilly. Does any borough board member wish to speak? Chairperson Baptiste, followed by Chairperson Brown.
I have a question. I understand what part of the city's intent is to make it easier for businesses to be able to find places and relocate. And it looks like some of these relocations are going into residential spaces that they haven't been before. But isn't part of the problem we're already competing for residential spaces which are already expensive as it is? And isn't there going to be an effect where if you all of a sudden add commercial to the mix, you really jeopardize some of the savings that you're trying to get in terms of the residential? Has there been conversation about that? And also, I think that the concern I also have is with respect to the process in terms of in which spaces, in which of these areas is community input being maintained, and in which spaces is it being taken away?
Yeah. Thank you for both of those questions. So I'll answer in reverse order. All four proposals under Goal 4, proposals 15, 16, 17, and 18, these are new kinds of zoning tools, all of which have to go before the community board, many of which today either are an as-of-right process or one that does not exist. So in that regard, these are new kinds of tools that, from our perspective, enhance the role of the community board as part of the land use process. Within Goal 3, proposals 12, 13, and 14 serve to reduce the conflicts that you see between business activity and residences, whether that is with the urban design rules in Proposal 12, auto repair businesses in Proposal 13, or delivery and package businesses in Proposal 14, all of which there are identified conflicts going on that we seek to identify. In particular, Proposal 13, you have auto repair businesses that are today allowed as of right along some commercial districts, and in the future, those businesses would have to go through a site plan review process with the BSA. Going on to Goal 2, the main way in which we think these benefit the community board process is through clarity, because all of these proposals in various ways under Goal 2, the zoning is unclear. And when the zoning is unclear, it is interpreted in inconsistent ways. And it's our perspective that more consistent zoning is zoning that's more easily enforced, not just by the agencies that enforce it, but also by community members. And so that's why when it comes to things like a bar or restaurant that's not being a good neighbor,
Chairperson Camacho, please, order.
the existing processes that exist, for example, 311, when you make a report to 311, it may not be clear whether the zoning allows that kind of activity. You can have a lot more confidence making that complaint if the zoning says you can do it or you can't do it. And then lastly, under the first goal, there are ways in which we are changing the zoning in as-of-right ways. And I want to be very clear on that. So Proposal 1, for example, and our rationale for doing so is focused on empty space, empty commercial space in particular. Proposal 1, if those businesses don't have a pathway today in zoning to reactivate a vacant storefront, they have to stay vacant. Or they have to be able to repurpose their space. Many kinds of these spaces are not able to be repurposed easily. For example, a restaurant cannot easily turn into an apartment without completely gutting it. Nothing in this zoning prevents that conversion to housing, but it makes it easier for that repurposing of other uses. So it's all about empty space. The rationale is empty space is bad for residents, it's bad for businesses, it's bad ultimately for the city and all of us who live in it. Proposal 2 does change some as-of-right allowances for commercial corridors, where today you have limited retail uses in C1 districts. C2 districts typically allow a wider range of local services jobs, or type businesses, for example. Proposals 3 and 4 and 5 are considered as-of-right, but each of those proposals have environmental standards that are clear to be met for these business types. And then Proposal 6 actually doesn't change zoning whatsoever. And so we think it is a useful tool for community board members for the reasons that I described earlier about the cell phone repair store and many other business types like it. Because the zoning is fundamentally unclear on where businesses can locate and what they can do. That's a problem not just for us as part of the city agency, but also for community members trying to understand where a business can go, small businesses trying to understand where a business can go. And so Proposal 6 in particular is all about updating the terminology we use. And I hope that's helpful on your broader question around community input in the process. And then on the concern about potential for conflict with housing, we actually see this proposal and the housing opportunity proposal, which is coming in a couple months, as being very complementary because our city faces multiple crises. And I'd like to believe that as a city, we can face multiple crises at the same time. We know that we have a housing affordability crisis, and we know that the root of that crisis is through many ways that our zoning makes it hard to build new housing, particularly affordable housing. At the same time,
Only for the benefit of those for whom this is being recorded, yes, we completely understand. Please, so we can keep the audio clear. I understand there will be ample opportunity for the public to express the concerns, but we just want to keep the audio clear, please. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. At the same time, we want to make sure that the ways that our zoning is making it hard to fill storefront space and office space are addressed. Now, the one part of your question I think I didn't get to is home-based businesses. So, thank you. I'll address that now. Our home business regulations in our zoning today allow for a wide range of business types, but they make clear a few things. One, you have to be a dwelling unit first. There's language that says that the business activity can only be incidental to your use as a dwelling. The second thing is that you can't sell anything you didn't make on site. So today in zoning, you could be a jewelry maker, sell it on Etsy. You couldn't buy jewelry from someone else and then sell it from your home. And there are other safeguards that say you can't have odors, noise, dust, particulate matter, anything that would be considered a nuisance to your neighbor. That's in the zoning today, and we're not proposing to make any changes to that because so for home-based businesses, those are the rules today, but the zoning prohibits things like barbers, interior designers. And we want to remove the restrictions on those business types because we think that the environmental rules, the restrictions on retail are effective and they work. We're also making some changes to the size of the size of a small business or a home-based business, as well as the number of employees you can have in a home-based business. These rules are already in place today in all of the city's mixed-use districts, places where you have light industrial uses and residential uses in the same place. These rules have been in place for decades. And if you don't believe me, I'm happy to send you the exact section of the zoning resolution on that. So,
Sorry,
because,
would you pause, please?
yeah.
Please proceed.
Yeah. I don't wish to get into a debate, but unfortunately, you're not correct. Tribeca, it is correct. However, there are many places, what are called our MX districts, where those same rules that we're proposing are in place. So you can have within our city's MX districts up to 3 employees in a home-based business, and you can also have up to 49% of your dwelling unit as a home-based business, and you can also have more than 500 square feet as a home-based business. Those have been the regulations in place for decades in parts of Brooklyn as well as other boroughs across our city.
Before I call on Chairperson Brown, I would please do respond to the questions that are asked by the Borough Board members. For germaneness, we will, as I said, get to the public hearing matter. Chairperson Brown.
Good evening. Community Board 14 has not completed their analysis of the zoning text amendment. After several presentations in committee and in a public hearing for over 2.5 hours, we have still halfway to go through the items on the worksheet. We should be able to come to a resolution by the middle of January. What we're finding is that a Venn diagram is formed between the changes in use groups, the change in how they are applied to commercial districts, and understanding how those intersect with what our communities need. This is a critical thinking approach that we have sought, and DCP has made a good attempt at giving us the tools to address these changes, but the current zoning text amendment is 1,127 pages long, with hundreds of comments. You are trying to change a zoning resolution that is 63 years old in a year and a half with 3 sweeping and complex zoning text amendments in a 60-day review each. I'm not complaining. I'm tired. And my faith and my trust has been tested. With every presentation DCP, this is my opinion, not necessarily the board's. With every presentation DCP puts forth, it's idyllic. You will be able to buy and fix your bike in the same store. Hyper-local lettuce and microgreens from urban agriculture. You can make jewelry from your home. But through this process, we have brought to them the worst case scenarios: unlicensed cannabis agriculture, unchecked home food production and supper clubs, loss of residential housing diverted to offices and buildings with 2 cores. I'm lucky Community Board 14, for the most part, hopes for the best case scenario, and our vote will reflect as such, but we know that ultimately when the worst case scenario happens, enforcement is woefully inadequate. So some preliminary notes from our deliberations. We discussed the possibility of losing the diversity of businesses when combining C1 and C2 commercial properties. New residential developments with 2 cores, that means 2 elevators and 2 entrances, could easily be converted to office space from residential housing if the market is more fruitful and less regulated than housing. We had a very lively discussion about urban agriculture. We very much want access to fresh food without walking 7 or 8 blocks, but the worst case scenario is unlicensed cannabis agriculture. To note, in this zoning text amendment, you do not include the North American Industry Classification System Code for cannabis dispensaries, cannabis production, cannabis agriculture, cannabis laboratories, and they are not identified as any use group, and they should be. Regarding activation of storefronts, the general consensus amongst board members was that the use group should be limited to use group 3, community facilities, or a discretionary process should proceed. There should also be a time limit. We will continue to deliberate somewhere between 5 and 10 years for those properties in our findings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Heredia, Councilmember. Luis, for Councilmember Farah-Lewis.
Thank you very much. My council member asked me to bring up 2 questions for you this evening. Obviously, we've been, as last year, on the Committee of Landmarks, Public Sightings, and Dispositions. We've been chatting with the chair a lot about this particular issue. This is probably the 12th time I've seen this presentation. So, you know, and a lot of it is abstracted, right? Because we're not looking at over 1,000 pages of zoning, it's hard to know the nuances. So I'm going to ask 2 questions for you, and I have 1 question for the chair. So first question in regards to Goal 3, Item 13. Especially in Flatbush, some of the auto repair and other concerns has been one of the major issues with some of the boundaries between the manufacturing and the residential areas. We have one of the larger IBZs across Brooklyn, the Flatlands Fairfield IBZ. It's been a big, horrible issue dealing with some of the auto repair and some of the negligence a lot of the businesses have and don't respect the neighbors. Something that we have not seen at all is what are the mechanisms of enforcement once these are actually implemented? That's the first question. The second question is in regards to the second floors. One of the major issues that we have, especially when it comes to the diversity of Council District 45, is we have a large part of our district that on the western side is very much multi-tenants, 3 stories or up. Other parts of the district are 1- to 2-family homes. My only question, this one, are the processes for as-of-right use for these new kinds of expanded business different between single 2-family homes and multiple dwellings, and how so? And for the chair of Borough Board, Mr. Lewis, the council member has concerns with 11 out of 18 of these and doesn't want to vote positively on those, would there be an opportunity to separately consider these items either today or at a future Borough Board meeting? Thank you.
Before Department of City Planning answers, I'll answer the point of order. What we will do with respect to voting will happen after the public meeting. I will address that. It is very well possible. I have my suspicions that a quorum has ceased to exist. I will seek to determine that at the appropriate time. If that is in fact the case, there won't be any vote today. There won't be able to be any vote today. Department of City Planning.
Thank you. To keep it short so we can get to more questions, clarification first. Your second question, is that within regard to Proposal 5 on upper floor commercial businesses, or is that with regard to home-based businesses, Proposal 11? To both.
As number 1.
Okay. Okay, so I'll answer the, I think, more simple question first around auto businesses and enforcement. What we're proposing for commercial areas, so these are mapped commercial districts. If a new auto repair business would like to locate in these districts, they would have to go through a BSA special permit process. That BSA special permit is subject to findings that we have laid out. We can follow up with you and send you the exact zoning section number where we have that set up. But the business has to demonstrate to the Board of Standards and Appeals that they've met those findings. There is also a 10-year limit on that term. It is not unlimited term, and so towards the end of that 10-year term, should they wish to renew, they would have to go back before the BSA and demonstrate that they met those findings. And at that point, there would be opportunity for both members of the public, community boards, others, yourself and the council member to weigh in and say, this business was not actually doing what they were supposed to. They should not be having their special permit renewed. So that is one of the mechanisms around enforcement. The other one is the day-to-day work of our city agencies. So depending on the nature of the concern, if it's a concern about a business not being in, or having business activity in the public right away, let's say, that's typically either the Department of Transportation or the NYPD that would handle a situation like that. If it's related to the inside of the building itself, it's typically the Department of Buildings or the Fire Department or the Department of Environmental Protection. So my short answer is it depends, but in any case, the process starts with 311. And I've heard many community board chairs recommend that because while 311 is not perfect, it creates a way for us to record and understand the nature of concerns and a way to triage those concerns within the city government. So those are the two types of enforcement.
Yes, because of that, because we are aware that the vast majority, I'm more specifically saying for grandfathered uses.
Yeah.
For, let's say, an existing auto repair shop, will they be subject to this new provisions? Will the board be able to have oversights over, especially some of the most egregious ones? Or will those be grandfathered and only new applications be subject to this?
In some cases, they will be subject. In some cases, they won't. So we are trying in this proposal to strike a balance. We know that many auto repair businesses are critical parts of the community. Many New Yorkers drive. Many New Yorkers need their cars repaired. We do not want to be doing something that negatively affects existing businesses. However, if a business that is existing were to seek a major alteration, as it's defined by the zoning, or if they were to change their operations, for example, if they start doing electric vehicle charging and repair, if they start doing some other type of their business, which is very likely in the coming years for them to start to adapt, then they hit the trigger of they need to go before the BSA. So it's not all existing businesses, it will be some. Would welcome further conversation to understand local conditions with you and the council member on that. And then around your question around combination of proposals 1, 5, and 13. So generally speaking, proposals that would allow for commercial above the ground floor, there are a few different cases. The first case, and this is typical in most of Brooklyn, you have a commercial overlay. Typically, it's 2 stories, might be 3 stories. On the first story, on the ground floor, you can have a commercial business. On the second floor, in any of these districts, or most of these districts, you can have a community facility. You can have a doctor's office, you can have something education related, but you can't have another kind of office. And so what we're proposing as part of Proposal 5 is to say in the places where you can have a second floor community facility, you can also have a second floor commercial use. So that's that's Proposal 5. In higher density locations, what this looks like, so higher density is defined as C4, C5, and C6. Then in these districts, you can have 2 floors of commercial already, but we're proposing in these instances, if you meet both the sound requirements and the physical separation requirements, that you can have these commercial uses above the second floor as well.
Is any other member of the Brooklyn Borough Board who wishes to speak on this matter? Does any other Borough Board members wish to speak? Seeing no indications, thank you to the Department of City Planning.
Thank you.
Are happy to dismiss you, and then we'll now proceed, as I said, to the third portion, which is the public hearing. For the public hearing, under the rules governing this type of matter, we will, consistent with practice, for folks who sign up first, we will call you. You're welcome to come up front and to testify. As I stated earlier, there will be a limit of 2 minutes per individuals testifying. Also consistent with the custom, we will try to shift the different perspectives indicating on folks who've signed up. Then anyone who's not signed up will be permitted to speak on this matter. I want to clear up that earlier there had been a desire to speak on other Borough Board matters. That is to be addressed under the agenda item for other business. So this is testimony solely on the public hearing item, which is the application about City of Yes economic opportunity. And I'm going to, as I said, call names first of those who've signed up. You're welcome to come to the dais and sort of speak for 2 minutes. And then after we get through those names, we'll then allow anyone else who's here, you have a right to sort of testify. We'll start with Angus Fisher. Oh, wait. You're doing it on behalf of a council member, right? Oh, okay, please.
Please tell us if the person about to testify is in favor of or in opposition, so that we can, it should be alternating. One.
Yes, we're doing that already, but sure, this is in opposition. Sure, yes, ma'am, I'll do so. This is in opposition.
Hello, how you doing? Good night. My name is Angus Fisher. I currently reside in East New York, Brooklyn. One of the questions that I have, or statements that I have for this, was kind of brought up in the sense that with all of the vacant commercial space that we currently have, how is this, mixing commercial space with residential space going to be beneficial? And with private developers and them coming in and building a whole building, this kind of they can get more bang out of their buck, where they put stores inside of the building to kind of create its own ecosystem where they don't have to leave the building for anything. A supermarket on one floor, a school on the next floor. You got stores popping in throughout the place, and everything on a rooftop is gonna be, a club on a rooftop, things of that nature. So how does that, when they can be more advantageous with their funds by turning it into some luxurious, oasis versus a residential building, whereas the biggest issue that I feel in the community is housing. So if we're not addressing the housing need, and by we able to turn an apartment into a commercial space or a light manufacturing or anything of that sort, it takes away that feasibility for us to live in it. So at that point, how can we how can we mitigate this situation? Because there's a lot of positives in the plan, but then there's a lot of negatives, and the negatives kind of stem from the lack there of oversight on the positives. So it kind of negates us moving forward if we see all these gray areas. It's like the gray areas are opening. And in that, I'll close.
Thank you, testimony. In favor, Kevin Guscott.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. Thank you. My name is Kevin Guscott. I'm from the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. Yes, and I'm here to support the proposal and share with you a statement from Randy Pierce, our president and CEO. So the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce is strongly supports the Department of Planning's proposal for the City of Yes for economic opportunity. The Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce is a borough-wide membership and economic development organization dedicated to helping businesses through 4 channels: promotion, support, advocacy, and convening. The Brooklyn Chamber and its affiliate organizations, the Brooklyn Alliance and the Brooklyn Alliance Capital, provide direct business services, technical assistance, and support programs to help Brooklyn businesses grow. New York City needs modern zoning regulations that reflect our city. Our commercial corridors are the lifeblood of our communities, and this proposal will not only help to reduce retail vacancies, but will ensure a wider range of businesses and support job growth, which is vital for the city economic recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the importance of flexibility in our zoning regulations. Businesses, small and large, are re-evaluating how they use space, where to locate, and how they function in the face of changing consumer preferences and economic conditions.
Mr. Guscott.
By allowing businesses
Mr.
that
Guscott, I
cater...
want to say that the time is to testify is over. I apologize.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next up is Maxine Barnes, and then I'm going to call the next 3 folks to queue up. After Maxine Barnes will be Stephen Mitchell, Alicia Boyd, and Victoria Hillstrom. So if, those who are waiting, if you want to queue up in front of here, for the places, it's up to you.
Good evening, everyone. The broad stroke proposal of City of Yes COI zoning changes in all of the 5 boroughs, absent regard for specific community needs and concerns and uniqueness, is a recipe for disaster. Our zoning laws were put in place with concern and protection for residential neighborhoods and economic stability and opportunity. It is not outdated. It does not need to be modernized. It was put in place to keep zoning laws in place that are designed to have manufacturing and manufacturing zones and commercial corridors respectful of the residential neighborhoods they border. Our current zoning is conducive and set up for lucrative, profitable business enterprise that respect and consider all. Our community zoning requires special permits for live music and dance and cabarets because it would result in noise and residential disruption. City of Yes COI will allow music as of right. As of right is not acceptable. My community is particularly concerned with the zoning for economic development text amendment that would indiscriminately allow cabaret licenses on all commercial corridors, absent regard for the uniqueness of the neighborhood. As of right, there is no place in my community corridors for cabaret bars with loud live music. Commercial corridors in my neighborhood border residents raising families, schools, houses of worship, and is now congested, overpopulated, dirty, housing single, homeless, and mentally ill men. There is an increase in crime due to gentrification, displacement, and high rent. We need to encourage businesses to open essential services. The text amendment will increase crime. We fear that the text, I'm trying to downsize, they told me 3 minutes, 2 minutes. We fear the text amendment will have the same result as the proliferation of smoke shops in our black and brown neighborhood. There is no place in my community for illegal or even legal smoke shops. Although allowed citywide and all are suffering,
Maxine Barnes,
there is a
the
concentration
time
of
has
smoke shops
expired.
in black and brown. We suspect that this rollout of this text amendment will have a proliferation of alcohol, loud music,
Ma'am?
dancing.
Ma'am, the
community
time.
says yes to economic restoration and responsible enterprise that is respectful of community and children and a sustainable environment for our future. Thank you, community.
Stephen Mitchell? This is in favor, I believe. Yeah, I recognize that. Please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Stephen Mitchell. I'm a longtime resident, and unfortunately, I presently live in the smack dab middle of the projects that they're bringing up. And it doesn't take a rocket of science to know that decreasing crime, pollution, and everything else that it is going to occur. We already have trouble, and that this area is not being monitored by police. Okay, we all know the sad story about the police. We don't have enough men. We don't have enough men and men. So what's going to happen when this increases? There's no plan in place. None. I just went to the police meeting, and that was their song. That's all they cried. There's nothing we could do. There's nothing we could do. We don't have enough men. And so how do you possibly plan to increase this problem without a plan in place to deal with the problems that's going to arise? How is that possible? Is there no consideration for the people in the community as this project is corrupt? It's nothing but corruption. There's a big conflict of interest. There's no true member of the community on this board to represent us. None, not one. And they don't want to listen to nothing that we have to say. They have totally excluded us. We are excluded. We are homeowners. Do we not have any right? And regardless of a homeowner, anybody that lives in this community, you don't have to be no homeowner. You're going to be subjected to all this madness. So I say, how is this occurring? We can't let this happen. We can't. We have to bind together. As you know, we're trying to regroup as a community, get more people involved is what it's going to take. But we got to make some changes. We got to get rid of the present board. We got to get somebody on that board to represent us, truly. So I want to thank you for your time. But everybody on that board has to go. Everybody's involved in this. The person that's on there is very scared. He doesn't want to even be on the board, the conflict of interest, the guy that's in it for the money. This is all about money. That's what he's in there for. And it's crazy. You look at him, he's extremely
Mitchell,
nervous.
Thank you for your
testimony. But I thank you, everybody, and let's pull together.
Thank you. Having no other slips that clearly indicate anyone else in favor, we're going to go with opposition and then a blank. So in opposition, Alicia Boyd.
I object to the fact that over hundreds of thousands of apartments and millions of residents will be affected by these broad changes without DCP conducting an environmental impact statement. For example, DCP has decided to merge both light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing into groups that can now exist in most commercial streets and inside residential buildings. They sold these amendments to the public as safe businesses, when in fact, they have not defined the term safe. nor does the law restrict businesses that are safe to be in commercial spaces and inside apartment buildings. For example, sugar refinery is classified as a heavy manufacturing business. According to the current laws, heavy manufacturing businesses may only exist inside of manufacturing zones. And the reasons, and I quote from the law, is that these businesses involve considerable danger of fire, explosion, and other hazards to the public health and safety, and normally generate a great deal of traffic, foot traffic, and fright. And yet these businesses, like the sugar refinery, can now come into your neighborhood, can be on your commercial quarter, can be inside your residential apartment, okay, with the current standards. And let's look at the current standards. The current standards for these manufacturing businesses are based on the fact that they exist in a manufacturing zone. That's their current standard. They're away from the community, they're away from commercial corridors, they're in their own zone, and that's their standard. They're gonna take the same standard and put it next door to you. How can that possibly be? You have to upgrade your standards to protect, because you're no longer away from this manufacturing zone. They're right next door to you. They're right above you. They're right underneath you. I know, was that fast? Fuck.
Alicia Boyd,
I can't believe
please.
that.
Thank you for your testimony.
But I have,
Thank you for your testimony.
what the DCP needs to do is they need to do an environmental impact statement, and they have not done it. It is a violation of the law for you to put manufacturing businesses next to residential, inside of residential apartments, and then say, oh yeah, we're gonna maintain the standards that are based upon them being separated.
Ms. Boyd.
You should be demanding
Boyd.
an environmental impact statement from DCP, and you should make sure your city council people, which I noticed have disappeared, the one council person has disappeared. You should make sure that they are demanding from DCP an environmental impact statement. Thank you.
So Victoria Hillstrom. After Victoria Hillstrom, we'll go with Maria Roca, Chester Dean, Lucy Contine, and Kevin Garcia. If you all want to queue up, you'll be after Victoria.
You want to stand over here?
Yeah, how about is that okay? Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Hillstrom. I am from Tribeca, from an industrial zone. I actually worked on the loft bill for Tribeca, North Brooklyn, where we defeated Anthony Reynoso and Mayor Eric Adams, and now have extended it to Soho. And I would just like to say what Alicia is saying is very true. I happen to be a designer. There's an architect above me. Our daughter was Dan Garodnick's chief of staff. We are offended by this proposal. Alicia is correct. Our manufacturing zones, the artist adapted buildings to residential code. It cost an absolute fortune. Incredibly, city planning just rezoned Soho. That's actually zoned for all of these uses in a plan to knock down 185 rent-stabilized buildings, alter or artist lofts to offices, add big box retail, hotels, and commercial without the guarantee of one affordable unit. MIH doesn't apply to low-rise buildings. It literally alters our historic district that supports arts and culture, fashion, film, music, entertainment, and the arts. We are zoned for it. And they've turned it into the meatpacking district. Offices, restaurants, hotels, and big box retail. So I'm afraid that city planning is not very credible, and we're just going in circles. If this is what they wanted, what they're proposing, why would they have rezoned Soho and done the same thing in the Seaport in manufacturing zones? So I think that we just need to understand that what they're saying isn't true. We have designed nightclubs. What the city is doing is taking away our standards. whether it's the landmark laws, the loft laws, the hotel laws. We have laws and structure that has allowed us to build the largest economy in the world. And I hope that you will all respectfully just say no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. In opposition, Maria Roca.
Good evening, all. I am Maria Roca. I am a long-time resident of Sunset Park, 1964. Have seen that neighborhood up, down, sideways, and every which way that a neighborhood could go. And there's much to say here, but I am in good company, in eloquent company, much more eloquent than I am. I'm going to stick to all of the inspections, enforcement, that is going to be needed when you can have someone legally filming XXX movies above you at 3 o'clock in the morning. And even though they're supposed to stop at 9 because whatever rule it is, and you call the precinct or you call 911, that they're screaming and yelling and squeaking and whatever upstairs or next to you, who's going to come? No one's going to come. Because right now, our precinct is so overextended. From the motorcycles on the sidewalk, and the right now illegal cabarets that are in every restaurant in Sunset Park. Wait a moment. They come with girlfriend experience, the cabaret. It is not just cabaret. It is just not music. It is a DJ, and I understand that DJ is live music. I am not sure about the law, but does anyone here know? So then there's a girlfriend experience in the basement or above, in the apartment above that restaurant. We live that. The increase in crime, knifings, when people get too drunk or something is put on their drink, and they're trying to be charged $100 for 10 beers. We live that way around my house. This has grown. We have seen it grown. Nobody shows up when you call 911.
Thank you.
Nobody, because the police is dealing with a knifing somewhere else, and the police
Thank you
cannot
very
be
much for
everywhere.
your testimony.
Fine.
Thank you.
Fix this. Tell us how you're going to keep us safe, keep us prosperous, keep us alive through all these changes.
Thank you
and
very,
then come back
very
with
much
another
for your
plan.
testimony. With no clear indication, Chester Dean.
I didn't really know enough to adequately vote before I got here. Fix the mic. Now? There we go. Just one comment on the why we can't do video, because can't we own our own future and just put it in libraries or something if people don't want to have it in homes? Like have the council people there. But these are all very aspirational, but I wonder, like I live in Lefferts Gardens, and there's like a couple of things that seem very clear to me. Like I moved from Williamsburg, and the supermarkets in Lefferts Gardens have higher prices and lower quality food. It seems very predatory, so I wonder if we look at tactical things like that, and traffic lights. And I've got a very angry, very pregnant wife who wants me to go home, so sorry for not being able to stay.
Thank you for your testimony. Next is Lucy Coteen. In opposition.
No, you're kidding. Hang on a minute. That's right. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can fix this one. Okay. So I just have some kind of random thoughts. I didn't really prepare anything. But the city continues to shoot itself in the foot, it seems. They're chasing out the working class, the people who make the city run, the teachers, the policemen, the firemen, the hospital workers, nurses, They can get paid better elsewhere. But by putting up these kind of barriers, congestion pricing being one of them, we're not going to ask all our teachers who work in New York to pay $15 a day, and our firemen, and our policemen, and our hospital workers, our nurses are deserting the city, and we know there's shortages. The city is killing itself. It's self-suicide. The City of Yes is nothing but a program for developers. As we know, we have a mayor who's under the influence of developers. He can't get enough money from them to be satisfied. We know he has thugs for friends, criminals, and those are his people. That's our mayor. What struck me was the number, 17,000 vacant storefronts, yet you want to put stores around people in their buildings? That makes no sense. You need to support, it's obvious, it's insane. 17,000 vacant storefronts, and rather than support commerce in those storefronts, you want to put them everywhere else. This makes no sense. It's a deregulatory program for developers, for Chamber of Commerce. And of course, oversight. What is the oversight? We know DOB is short, every agency is short of staff. And yet you're going to have oversight over every single business that wants to get into someone's home, into their... Yeah, and you're going to call 311 and 911, even as was just stated before. Try calling 911, and they're occupied with something more important than the fact that your neighbor is too loud. I saw that there are 4 people in the noise department who oversee noise. 4 people in the whole city. Now, think about the noise that's going to be created. So how do you ensure that businesses are acting legally? Who is regulating them? You're going to eliminate environmental review. You said where it's environmentally, you want to get rid of the EIS. You want to get rid of ULURP. You want to get rid of the community boards really having any say. So this whole program, it's just the city trying to commit suicide. And we don't need it. You must be spending, I don't know, how much money did you spend on this whole program to create all this unnecessary paperwork and jobs? You could have put it in the MTA so we don't have to have this idiotic congestion pricing.
Thank you very, very much for your testimony. Thank you. So we next have Kevin Garcia. After Kevin Garcia, and folks who might wish to queue up, Albert Schwecker, Eli Caddy, Maria Ferrari, and Raul Rivera will be next.
Oh, cool. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Garcia. I'm the transportation planner with the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. NEJA is a nonprofit citywide membership network linking grassroots organizations from low-income communities of color in their struggle for environmental justice. We appreciate DCP's efforts in recognizing the need to update the regulations to align with the evolving economic landscape. However, we are concerned about the oversight in the current proposal, particularly in the context of last-mile warehouses and their impacts on communities of color. We believe that addressing the challenges posed by the rapid rise of e-commerce, particularly the impact of last-mile warehouses, is crucial for fostering vibrant neighborhoods and supporting the economic recovery of New York City. The rise of e-commerce is identified as a key macroeconomic trend necessitating reform, and the City of Yes aims to support emerging industries while minimizing the adverse effects on other land uses in the city. Although DCP's proposal introduces an initiative in the form of micro-distribution facilities, it falls short of addressing the significant land use conflicts stemming from the clustering of last-mile warehouses in manufacturing and CA districts. The proposal's focus on smaller facilities is crucial, but it misses the larger facilities that operate around the clock and contribute substantially to congestion, safety risks, and environmental concerns. To rectify this oversight, we urge the community boards and the Borough President's Office to take a comprehensive approach and propose an expansion of the City of Yes proposal to incorporate a specific text amendment defining last mile warehouses as a distinct category to complement the micro distribution facilities proposal and establish a special permit process for last mile warehouses so communities can participate in reviewing the siting of these facilities. The omission of last mile warehouses regulation stands out in light of City of Yes's stated objectives, and addressing the issue is crucial to the success of the proposals. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Albert Schweika. Albert, C-H-O-U-E-K-A. Eli Caddy? Eli Caddy? K-A-D-I last name. Maria Ferrari.
Hello, everybody. Current zoning laws protect residences from manufacturing activities like noise, pollutants, and actual physical vibrations. Who are affected by these? Napping babies, children doing homework, people who are homebound because of disability, illness, or just being old. I have a personal experience with physical vibrations in my home. A couple of years ago, a neighbor 4 houses away had a party and set up a DJ, a professional DJ, in the backyard. Now, we're a block of pretty much 4- and 5-story buildings. From 6 p.m. when the sound check started until 11 o'clock at night when the police finally stopped the music, we were subjected to not only loud music, but actual vibrations in our homes. I could feel the bass through the soles of my shoes. I took things off my walls because I was afraid they were going to fall down because of the vibrations. Now, our housing stock, a lot of it is over 100 years old. Is the City of Yes going to pay a landlord to repair cracks in the walls caused by these vibrations? Is the City of Yes going to pay a landlord to replace, repair, or even replace the brownstone that's falling off their buildings by these almost earthquake-like conditions? Another issue is that currently, thieves have to actually break into our buildings to steal packages. Once they're invited in to go to the bakery above your house, or the cafe above your house, or the hairdresser above your house, you know, you don't even have to worry about them breaking in. We're just inviting them in. The City of Yes is inviting strangers who will be in our stairways, who will be in our elevators. They're just inviting them into our homes. We need actually more regulations, not less. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The last slip not indicating a position, Raul Rivera.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a New York native. I'm a native from the Bronx. We are against this. We are against this mayor, this city council, the Speaker Adams, who are permitting this. I have over 23,000 trips. Our city is being hijacked right under our noses. We know this. We didn't wake up last night. We know what's going on in this city. Our parking, Zip Car, Get Around, City Bike, Torque It, these are all rideshare companies. And the mayor is a sellout. We selling out our city. We know this. And the council, these council members, where are they? They don't speak for the New Yorker. They don't speak for me. Adrian Adams, you may be a speaker, but you don't speak for New York. That's a fact, whether you like it or not. And 90% of these council members are sellouts. All right? We got a billionaire that lives up on the west side, Mark Gorton. We got all these non-for-profits that are lobbyists, Transalt, Street Packs, Writers Alliance, and so on. There's many. They're selling out our city. And we're not gonna let it happen. We're gonna take our city back.
Thank you very much. Sir? Sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. So I'm now gonna call the next group of speakers, all of whom, according to the slips, are in opposition. Christopher Johnson, Joseph McTot, or Joey Music, the person who signed up with Joey Music, Raphael Dion, and Batya Atebi are the next four. Mr. Johnson.
Ready? Hello, my name is Christopher Leon Johnson. On the record, I'm a former member of Brooklyn Community Board 8. I was ousted by the Brooklyn Board president. And I'm going to say this right now about the Brooklyn Board president. The Brooklyn Board president is nothing but a simp for Transalt. He's a simp for open plans. He's a simp for open door for all. And the reason this is going on is because you got this board president who now we all know who's a sellout, who deceived all of us into voting for him over Robert Carnegie and what's her name, Joanne Simon and all other people, Brooklyn Borough president. And now we got this guy in as the Brooklyn Borough president who's going to sell our city out to the river. Antonio Reynoso is the devil. And I'm going to say this right now. He dresses all hippie. He will shake your hand and while he's stabbing Brooklyn behind their back. Antonio Reynoso is captive to Transalt, open plans, and open New York for all, and Streets Pack, and Streets Blog, and this is the reason why that this is going on with the city of Yes, because you got the Brooklyn Borough president who's behind this stuff. And I'm gonna say this is my advice to everybody out here. We gotta find a candidate for 2025. I don't care who it is. We have to find a candidate to run against this guy, and we gotta throw money behind that person, and we all gotta knock on doors and get that guy out. The guy's a fraud, he's a fake. I didn't vote for him, thank God I didn't vote for him, but I should have donated his campaign. And I'm gonna say this right now, that all the community board chairs need to come forward and stay against this guy. And I'm gonna say this right now to Mr. Robert Camacho, I know you're down with Sandy Nurse, you're down with Jennifer Gutierrez, who is heavily connected with Antonio Reynoso. You need to jump on board with all the people that's gonna be against Antonio Reynoso, because if you don't, you're gonna end up like Danielle Breaker, end up in Queens. You're gonna be voted out your chairship. And I'm saying, I respect you, brother, but I'm gonna tell you right now, remember, look at Danielle Breaker. She was mingling around all Transalt people, Streets Pack people, the Queensboro president, and I'm gonna say this right now, brother, if you don't step up and stand up to your bro, Antonio Reynoso, you're gonna be out the door as a chairman. Take care, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. As I said, Joseph Mick, I believe that's an M-I-T-C-A-D-I, Joseph.
I'll be out on the 27th, because the 27th, 2027.
The next person is Raphael Dion, or Dayon. Raphael Dayon. Raphael Dayon. Batya Atebi. I will determine the quorum question. So, are you telling me that you do not believe that there's a quorum? All right. Under those circumstances, under Robert's Rule Assembly, Mr. Heredia, if I have determined that there is no quorum, we're right back to the starting point where we are left with those two options. I'll tell you this much. As I intended earlier, I'm intending to determine whether there's a quorum after the public hearing portion. If you believe that there's no quorum, and I have determined that there is none, we cannot proceed. That will be the end of this program. So, I had left off by calling for Batya Atebi. The next person who signed up to testify is Elif Kiral. Elif Kiral, E-L-I-F, last name K-I-R-A-L. Following that, Sue-Wen Chong, Adrian Walsh, and Julia Bryant will be the next to queue up. Please.
Hi, we live in Clinton Hill, and we've been there for about 20 years. And this is the first time I'm doing anything like this here. And it's really sad, actually, that I don't see the city listening to the people. We went to a community board meeting because we had an issue with a tenant downstairs, and they came in as a cafe, and then they changed to a bar, open till 2 a.m. every fucking night. And there was loud music, and the vibration, like the other woman was talking about. And we called 311, we called 911, we called 311, we called 311. Our neighbor called 311. Nothing happened. I mean, it finally got to where the owner of the space had to call an attorney. I mean, he couldn't even deal with the bar, with these people. And so finally, they did cut the music down to 10 o'clock because they were violating the liquor laws. But nobody did anything. I mean, and the thing is, every night, it wasn't one party, it's every night. So every night we're waiting, oh, is it gonna start now? And it's horrible, and I can't imagine to loosen that regulation. I mean, to what? So I don't agree with any of this. The other point I wanted to make is that it seems like you're trying to shove all these rules into one vote. And you can't, it's just like what politicians, the presidents, you know what they do. They pile everything into one. I don't know what it's called, but, pork thing. And then you have to vote on this.
Thank you for your
and then
testimony.
it allows all these other rules to pass. And that's not right. You guys really need to separate this out.
Thank you for your testimony.
You guys. Thank you.
Sue-Wen Chong. Just for those, for the record, everyone else who's testified has been in opposition, just so there's no ambiguity. Please.
Hi,
Please proceed.
I'm a resident of Prospect Lefferts Garden. I'm also a member of Community Board 9 and the chair of our Land Use Committee. I'm just speaking for myself tonight, though. We also did a lot of work trying to get through these 644 pages of zoning text changes. We're very tired with everything the city's been throwing at us. So let me give a spoiler to those who haven't gotten to the end yet. There's a whole bunch of special permits that allow them to waive all of the performance standards and size limits that they put on the new manufacturing that they're allowing in the commercial retail districts. So make sure you look all the way to the end. Just want to respond to some of the things that Department of City Planning has said, because we're finding that there's a big discrepancy between what is actually in the zoning text and what they are telling people. For example, they're saying that automotive uses are allowed as of right in many areas. I live next to a C1 retail district where they are not allowed. I mean, one of the biggest problems we have is seniors getting run over by mopeds on the sidewalk. Who wants to get run over by cars next to your beauty salon or when you're sitting at a sidewalk cafe? Who wants the e-bike store exploding underneath a 6-story apartment building? So no, we don't want the automotive uses coming into these districts, even if you call them light automotive uses. Third, the corner stores, you know, they've said that there's a higher bar if it's an all residential area, But I'm going to read to you what that zoning text amendment actually says, if I have time to get through it. It says that the conditions are, one, that it is located on a corner lot and entirely within 100 feet of 2 intersecting street lines and does not exceed a size of 2,500 square feet, that such use will serve the surrounding residential area, that such use will generate a minimum of vehicular traffic to and through local streets and will not create traffic congestion. Such use will not produce objectionable effects and will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood in which the building is located. I don't see any specific restriction in there that would say anything about whether it's an all residential area or not. And these are just a few examples
Thank you for your testimony.
of what I'm talking about. So be careful.
Thank you. Adrian Walsh.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adrian Walsh. I was born, raised, and still reside in Clinton Hill. I was a lieutenant in the fire department for 26 years. Gentlemen, this is chaos. This is irresponsible. And this is the land of pretendo. Zoning is incredibly important. And you haven't invited us to the table. And the reason I can speak like this is because I have just retired. All right? You haven't invited anybody but yourselves to the table. And gentlemen, I wish you well, God knows, but if you are not inviting other voices, you are putting people's lives in danger. If there is a manufacturing zone, and I know that manufacturing zone is in my response area, I know what to bring, I know how many resources are going to be there, I know that this is going to be either very large and very difficult. If I respond to a multiple dwelling and there's a cafe on the 3rd floor, I have no idea what I'm walking into. And to be honest with you, there was a fire about 1.5 years ago on the Upper East Side in the 50s where we had to do a rope rescue. I don't know if anybody remembers that. They were running a business, it was an illegal business, of charging e-bikes. No regulation. You do not have the boots on the ground to have regulation. You will not have the boots on the ground to regulate this. And money trumps regulation. You are putting people's lives in danger with this. This is not reality. If you would like to tweak some of the zoning things, then invite us to the table for an illogical talk about what can and cannot be done. But this is a bunch of people getting in a room, patting themselves on the back for a corporate luxury park. God knows, I wish you both well, believe me, I do, and I hope you go back, and I hope you actually talk to the people in that room and stop listening to corporate people who are telling you, we're gonna make a ton of money out of this, and everybody's gonna be just fine. Because the person that can't move, guess what? They can't get out of their apartment, or they're stuck in their apartment when somebody's e-bike goes up in the hallway. And we can't get to them. And God knows, do you wanna hold somebody's hand for 22 minutes while you're waiting for an ambulance because nobody can get through? I trade my place with you any day.
Thank you for your testimony. Julia Bryant. After Julia Bryant, Esther Blount, Lucille Dandridge, Robert Thibault, and LaShawn Ellis would be the next to queue up. So please queue up. Please.
Good evening. I'm glad that so many people were able to stay, and I realized that my official elected were not. I want to applaud you on that. I want to talk about the text amendment that refers to residential and commercial overlay, I guess it's what it is. My concern is we can't do it right now. How are we going to do it right later? Because the example that is breaking my heart at this moment is on Fulton Mall, Brooklyn Tabernacle has a community space. In the community space, they have Sunday schools, they have Girl Scouts, they have Al-Anon meetings, but they can't have them now because the Dallas BBQ that's above them has pipes that have burst. And the pipes have gotten bacteria water onto the floor of the community space. The landlord couldn't do anything about it. And the line that I keep saying to myself is, Brooklyn Tabernacle, 10,000 members, and God's on their side, and yet they can't use their space. So who are we to fight? This is already going on. Brooklyn Tabernacle had to have a court case, and they are in court now because of this. So I'm just saying, we can't do it already. People are telling me that there are 4 people who are going to govern these things. I guess you're going to have to get a judge. My suggestion is vote no.
Thank you for your testimony. Esther Blount.
Hi, my name is Esther Blount. I'm on Community Board 2. Just want to talk about Proposal 15, which says allow local commercial on residential campuses. Let me tell you what this means. I'm going to say projects because I grew up in the project, but I'm talking about NYCHA housing. Residential campuses is NYCHA housing. So you're going to put a commercial business, you're going to take the green space away from minorities that live in NYCHA housing for a developer, a commercial, so they can make money. Everybody keep talking about, especially Trans-Or, we need more green spaces. We need more green, but they'll take it away from minority people. So this is dead wrong. That's just one thing. I'm not going to go on. I know I only got 2 minutes, but let me just say this. 50 chain stores closed down in 2023. Talking about Best Buy. We talking about, not Best Buy, Bath & Beyond, Rite Aid. You know you could go on and on. So if those big chain stores close, everybody buying stuff online, what's going to happen with small businesses? People buy jewelry online. During Christmas, I got all these ads for stuff. We have to rethink the whole thing on how we shop, how we go out. I don't see how a business is going to survive if you're on the 2nd floor in a residential building. It just doesn't make sense. You know we need real affordable housing, not to help bids and people with money. That's it.
Thank you for your testimony. Lucille Dandridge.
Good evening. As someone said earlier, I live in Brooklyn Heights, and this is the first time that I was sort of called to attend one of these meetings. My church is in Clinton Hill, and they've had several community meetings to talk about the proposed changes in their areas, to change bus routes, to make certain streets one way that aren't one way, to have more open streets. And my experience living in this area is the concern for the elderly and others who have disabilities that a accessory ride maybe can't get through, or taxis or share rides can't get through to the individuals who need to be picked up. City bikes are taking more and more spots that says you can't park. I think that there's the issue of enforcing existing laws has failed, and now we're putting proposals on the table that will have even more laws. I've called several times to the police department I saw my councilman here earlier, but he's not here now, about bikes on the street. You put a restaurant on the street and all of these delivery people sit in a group waiting to be called to deliver, and then they start off by riding on the streets. It's dangerous for anybody riding, and I'm voting no, and I think change is good, but if you don't have a way of enforcing it, then it's adding chaos on top of chaos, and something different has to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Robert Thibault.
Good evening. Department of City Planning is an illegitimate agency that values profit over life. They use zoning as their main vehicle to plan a city for the wealthy. They disregard comprehensive community planning and fill their ranks with those tied to the real estate sector. The city of Yes is yet another giveaway. The Department of City Planning is giving to its masters. Rebney and big real estate. That's what this is about. To say this is a tool of hypercapitalism is an understatement. It's allowing businesses everywhere while ignoring the over 350,000 vacant apartments available right now to house both New York City homeless and the ever-growing incoming migrants. You can't have property rights on stolen land. This is stolen land. I don't know why you wouldn't acknowledge that. That's crazy to me. But your technocratic presentation is not welcome here. It's not welcome for the majority of people of the city of New York. We got us, and we will fight this every step of the way. And we will not let Eric Adams, who, by the way, is a fascist, we will not let Eric Adams take over the functions of a working community. And that's what we are, and we're united. And I would not listen to city planning. I would encourage everyone to listen to Alicia Boyd. She knows more about what's going on with the city of Yes than the actual Department of City Planning. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. LaShawn Ellis, and after LaShawn Ellis, the last two individuals who signed up and in opposition, Jolie Cobb and Cheryl Bernard, you please queue up. LaShawn Ellis.
Oh, goodness. Good evening, good night. So first, I love, what was it, Land of Pretendo? Amazing. This is like some kind of dystopian reality show that I wish I wasn't in. First of all, DCP has not come to present at CB9. It has been requested many times, not come, so we're still waiting. If you still want to come, but you should. There is no notice of this hearing. You know, Alicia went to all ends to find out about this hearing. She sent out the email. That's why we have so many wonderful people here today. And mind you, all of the opposition versus the 1-4. It's pretty amazing. So I guess that's why you didn't invite us here tonight. Right in the midst of the largest housing crisis the city has ever seen, Mayor and DCP are proposing to eliminate thousands of apartments and convert them into commercial space. Despite the fact that there is an overabundance of vacant storefronts all over New York City in every community. The mayor's proposal, supported by big corporations and businesses, makes no sense. Why would you incentivize a property owner to remove and eliminate rent-stabilized apartments in order to have more commercial spaces? More money? Why would you take 2- and 3-story mixed-use buildings, both apartments and ground floor business, and now allow a property owner to convert the entire building into a commercial one, with the same businesses on the ground floor now existing on the 1st and 2nd floors above? What about removing the current law that encourages empty storefronts to be converted into apartments when the landlord fails to lease it to another commercial business within 2 years? All of these proposals will further diminish and reduce apartments, de-incentivize developers to build more apartments, and increase the commercial businesses that will further impede upon small businesses to survive on the ground floor retail. What will happen to our commercial corridors where small businesses thrive? If you now allow everyone to create their own small businesses inside their homes and apartment buildings, this will create even more vacant businesses as people choose to eliminate the cost of renting a ground floor business. Who will now buy these spaces? Oh, manufacturing businesses creating empty manufacturing zones as the developers seek to transform them into residential complexes. This is why DCP has stated, don't worry about all of these residential apartments being lost, because we've got a plan for you.
Thank you very much for your
People will live in manufacturing zones filled with contaminated sites that have existed for centuries.
Thank you
And
for
to
your
hell with how all of this will affect the quality of life and health of residences and the health of existing small businesses. This was never about small businesses, always about real estate and big corporations, as everyone has said. We see the end game. Stop with the bullshit.
Jolie Cobb.
Hello, nice to see you again. I'm again like the last to speak, which is amazing because I get to finish off a bunch of amazing people that are opposing something consistently. And I find it kind of interesting that we have a bunch of people that advocate for their lives and yet we still want to prioritize money. I'm just not understanding why we have a City of Yes housing proposal, and that's not going into effect until spring, and here we are halfway through a City of Yes economic proposal. So we're encouraging economic prosperity over life prosperity here in New York City. And if life prosperity is not important, what business is going to thrive? Especially if most of the people in this room are like advocating on behalf of something different. And not to mention the impacts of gentrification are not simply just in housing, but in job opportunities. I'm not a New York native. I've been here for almost 10 years. I moved here from California. And I know people like me are prioritized in something like this. And I know that because in my spaces, I see the way that some people agree and want to join and see opportunities for themselves. And people that are not like here, you know, these are people that don't have community ties. I'm very grateful for my opportunities and being intertwined with the community that has shown me so much. And that's only because I allowed it to. And this kind of proposal removes that kind of experience. It removes those narratives and ostracizes people that are very intrinsic to the community and what makes New York, New York. Like, Brooklyn, baby, what are you trying to take from us? I say us now because it feels like that. That's right, that's right. I'm here and I speak on behalf of the people that live here. And I will be here supporting them every step of the way. And I suggest you do the same because this is a voting and election year. We are all eligible to vote. And I will be at every corner advocating on voting on behalf of who supports us. And DCP needs to do better with that. So, thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for your testimony. Cheryl Bernard.
Good night, everyone. My name is Cheryl Bernard, and I oppose the rezoning amendment, and I ask that you vote no to these changes. You speak of present businesses being limited in what they can do. That is why those were put in place. Instead of trying to make this proposal look good, you need to speak the truth about what it really is. We all know what that is. I believe that the proposed changes will inevitably lead to negatively impacting the serene atmosphere in some communities that define each neighborhood. I urge the city officials to carefully consider the long-term consequences of the proposed rezoning, seeking alternative solutions that balance the need for each community's character. History has proven itself. Give an inch and they will take a yard or a mile. I do not see any shortages of businesses in New York City. Collaborative efforts between residents and city planners can lead to solutions that benefit both the city's growth and the well-being of our established community. I really cannot believe this is even being presented. Going home should be a safe haven, peaceful, and a way to escape the madness that is in this city and what this city is trying to do. We need new elected officials. I say, City of Yes, if you don't want to meet with all the public, you could meet with Maxine and Alicia Boyd alone. I think they know what's going on better than you do. I ask, Alicia, please run for mayor because I'll vote for you. But thank you for your attention to this matter, and I trust that you will consider the concerns raised by all who call this community home. Guys, we have to be real. This is going to totally destroy our city. I ask and urge that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. To comply with the rules for this type of hearing, I'm now going to invite any member of the public present who has not had a chance to testify to testify. The other piece of complying with that is if you testify, please state your name and let us know whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition. Does anyone who's not had a chance, please. So once again, when you get up there, please let us know your name and let us know whether you're in favor or in opposition.
I'm in opposition. My name is Sandy Rayburn. I'm a Fort Greene resident. I'm an old lady, 79, though I don't look it. And what I want to say is that I've had it. The city and its minions have taken our sidewalks, they've taken our street, they've taken our sky, the BS air rights. Give me a break. They own the sky? And there's nothing left except our homes. And that's what they are after. And I want to say, apropos of the elders who are suffering with this open streets nonsense, there's a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit, filed against the city, filed against the DOT. It's in federal court because the disabled are basically being prevented from equal access and egress under Title II. So I feel, yeah, clap away. I feel that trying to play nice with apparatchiks from the city, even trying to play nice with our council members who have been co-opted, or our borough president, or our mayor, is a futile effort indeed. We have to see you in court, and that's where I like to go. I'm involved in 3 different court cases. I'm litigious because I do not believe that our city is working for us. I think that you are obviously in need of a job, so you cite the popular speech that everybody asks you to speak, but it's in total flouting of what New Yorkers need and want. So I'll see you in court.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any other member of the public who has not yet had an opportunity to speak, who wishes to speak? Please, yes. And once again, please let us know whether you're in favor or opposition and your name for the record.
I am extremely against this project. I call the City of Yes. Big
And your name, please, sorry, just for the record.
Monique Denonça. I live in Vinegar Hill. I would just name it the city of anything goes. I do not have any trust in the politicians that are supposed to support us, to listen to us. They do not. They do not, I'm telling you. Small story. My neighborhood, as you perhaps know, is very, very small, very ancient. We worked really, really hard for many years to make it livable because it was under the thumb of the mafia. We had several transfer stations. We were squished under their thumb. They were ruling us. We worked, my husband and I, and my community, very hard to change the zoning because we had the support of good politicians at the time. My councilman and follower were pretty good. They helped us. They realized we were in danger. So we changed the zoning, which was light manufacture at the edge of Dumbo. You know, we bound together to fight this. We succeeded because we were, in our minds, residential. We had the right to live there. It was very difficult with the stench, the rats, the prostitution, disgusting streets. But we succeeded. We did something good. And then, after that, we managed to make a very ancient neighborhood a historic district. Now, with this project, the mayor is very much in favor, personally, to have the highest building, commercial building, with a top, which has a wraparound terrace, to be used for a party venue. Our streets are extremely narrow. I cannot see how the traffic can contain hundreds and hundreds of people for weddings, for all types of parties, etc.
Thank you.
It is going to be
Thank you for your
mayhem.
testimony.
We are not going to sleep one night anymore because I think the rental will be around maybe $60,000 a month.
Thank
Do
you for your
imagine
testimony.
how much is going to try to make money out of this party place? We'll never sleep again.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Please, once again, in opposition or favor, and your name for the record.
Opposition, my name is Corazon Valiente, born and raised resident of Flatbush 11226, same apartment, same building. Definitely up here because I wanted to speak in opposition of what was proposed. I don't have anything prepared, but just to even know that you guys don't have anything about cannabis in the proposal, and knowing that these smoke shops are all over the place just seems kind of crack-headed-ish, and I don't mean to say it that way, but from 11226, that's what comes to mind. So it's just like, and then to the C1, C2 thing, it just seems so vague, and then this rush and bum rush about having to go through thousands of pages, wanting to come to the community board meetings and wanting to be informed and know what to say and how to vote. It's just really discouraging. I'm new to community board. I'm on 14, and I was excited when I saw some of the council people in here and their representatives, but to see nobody here now, that they came late, left early. I mean, and they're getting paid for this, and I mean, we're volunteers, so I just wanted to come up here and say that, and just, you know, thank really like the people who spoke up and are doing this work, like especially you and, you know, Joanne, you know, people who are out here for us, so thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other member of the public, by all means. Once again, just note whether in favor or in opposition, your name for the record.
Sure. So, folks, good evening. My name is Carl Henry Cesar. I am a resident of Flatbush. I'm a Community Board 14 member. I'm just speaking on my own right now. I'm saying I'm in opposition. So the main concerns I have are process. And so it's like people are busy. They have lives. They came here at 6. Quorum wasn't reached till 6:40. And as the person who just came before me said, it's like 9:15, and a good portion of the elected officials aren't here. So that does feel disrespectful for the people who are sacrificing their things, that the elected officials and some of the board members aren't here that long. So that's just the process of how this specific meeting is. I think another pain point is there's a lot of pain here regarding communication. And so there's a way to share things where you want as many people to find out, and there's a way to do it where you want as few people to find out. And I feel like from what I'm hearing and seeing, if we really wanted as much feedback as possible, multiple languages, you got Brooklyn paper, you got New York paper, whatever papers you have in your boroughs, right? Like, I feel like the communication strategy should be better, right? Like, this is painful, but there's a way to engage as many people as possible in a better way to make sure that all that pain is upfront as opposed to towards the end of the finish line, right? And so the real pain hasn't hit yet, in my opinion, because we still have the affordable housing. That's the next one that's up. That's the next one that's up. And so This doesn't mean the communication can't be rectified. I'm just saying I think there's definitely improvements to the communication process so that community members can feel there is a genuine push from the city to hear them earlier in the process. And so that's it for me.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And again, a reminder, your name and whether you are in favor or in opposition, just for our record.
Thank you.
Please.
Hi. Yeah, hi. My name's Aileen Doherty, and I'm in opposition. And I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I'm working on something right now that I think is pretty important and it's pretty relevant. So I'm an attorney practicing for 30 years in corporate America. But I went back to school for my economics degree, and I'll be 60 next year, or this year. And one of the things I'm working on is the concept of the pursuit of happiness and the role of government. So the revolution was all about our rights, our inevitable rights. This whole thing is backwards. We're the ones who have the right to be happy. We're the ones that government is supposed to be working for. This is fucked up, right? And I come to you as a scientist, I come to you as a legal, basically scholar, because right now we're not fulfilling, the government is not fulfilling its obligations under the Constitution. This is a prime example of how government is using its power to screw the people it represents. And I think it's time that we stop it. You know, guys, I get it. You know, you come from outside the city, you don't know what it's like to be a New Yorker, you don't know what it's like to be in the neighborhood, you don't really know what it's like to be here. And it's easy. It's easy to just draft something, it's easy just to kind of put something out there, but it's not gonna work. So I think we have to start again, and we have to reset, and we have to say, hey, is the government for the people, by the people? Are we pursuing our happiness? I think we all should think about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Does any other member of the public who's not had a chance to testify wish to do so? And just once again, whether you are in favor or in opposition, and your name for the record.
My name is Rosaria Sinisi. I'm a 35-year resident of Clinton Hill, and I'm speaking in opposition. And one thing that crossed my mind listening to the testimony that preceded mine is that, unless I misunderstand, the opportunity to rent apartments in large apartment buildings to commercial uses such as cabarets, hair salons that may produce all kinds of noxious gases that might aggravate children's asthma, is actually sounding like a gift to developers, because it would give them a legal opportunity to make a rent-stabilized building uninhabitable. If you can produce a situation legally in a large apartment building where people cannot sleep, there's a reason why sleeplessness is defined as mental torture. People will move out if they cannot sleep. And I can't count how many landlords of large residential buildings would like nothing better. So that might be something else to be considered when you're talking about a lack of affordable housing.
Thank you for your testimony. Does any other member of the public wish to speak on this matter? Seeing no other member, and having received indications from Mr. Heredia that we may not have a quorum, I'm scanning the room as I did at the beginning and correct myself, we may no longer have a quorum. I'm scanning the room and I am seeing that it appears that we do not in fact have a quorum of the Brooklyn Borough Board. Similarly to the beginning of the meeting, I'll just read this from the record because this is a Roberts Rule Assembly. This is Rule 40 subsection 12. When the chair has called the meeting to order after finding that a quorum is present, the continued presence of a quorum is presumed unless the chair or member notices that a quorum is no longer present. If the chair notices the absence of a quorum, it is the duty to declare the fact, at least before taking any vote or stating the question on any new motion, which can no longer be done except in connection with permissible proceedings related to the absence of quorum, which was explaining at the beginning of the meeting. In the absence of a quorum, the remaining members can either adjourn or seek to regain a quorum. At this section of the hearing, this matter would be up for a vote under Section 85 of the New York City Charter, subsection B, subsection 6, so that is why I'm raising the quorum matter. Which, just by raise of hands, so I could verify this, how many Borough Board members remain? All right, that is less than a quorum. As at the beginning of the meeting, the two choices are either to try to regain a quorum or to adjourn. If adjourned, we would resume with our regular meeting on February 6th, and the matter at the point of requiring a vote would be unfinished business to be taken up at the February 6th meeting. I will first, as I did earlier in the meeting, check to determine whether there is an objection to adjourning under the circumstances of a lost quorum. Does any member of the Brooklyn Borough Board, chair's motion to adjourn in the absence of a quorum? Is that motion seconded by any member? The entire meeting is adjourned, but with the entire meeting being adjourned, we would pick back up at the point of the vote as unfinished business consistent with the agenda for the February 2024 meeting. February 6th, correct. Is there, so with the chairperson, Brown, with the point of clarification, I've moved that the Borough Board adjourn in the loss of a quorum under the Roberts Rule. I'm not going to be entertaining things from who are not Borough Board members at this time. Borough Board members, does anyone second the chair's motion? Chairperson Brown, is there an objection to adjourning in the loss of a quorum by any Borough Board member? Yes, Chairperson Camacho.
Does that mean that the borough president is not going to vote on that until he hears from the board itself, the borough board itself, and the borough and the boards itself? Only because I haven't heard their presentation. I came here, my board hasn't, and they should be coming Wednesday, hopefully. So they'll get a nice hearing from us too. Besides me again, but my thing is, he's not taking any stands in regards, I need a point of order in regards to him not agreeing with this at all. Is that right?
So I will say this for record, Chairperson Camacho. The point of order is not germane to the motion before us. However, I will just give you clarification. I have no indication from the Borough President's office when he will be weighing in on the City of Yes. I have none. So, but it is not germane to the particular motion. Do you have an objection to whether we adjourn in the loss of a quorum? You may have an objection. I will call a roll call vote and we'll dispose of it that way. It's up to you. Chairperson Baptiste? Roll call. All right, I will do a roll call vote on a motion under 40.6 of the Roberts Rules, what we do when there is a loss of a quorum, and this is the chair's motion, seconded by Chairperson Brown, to adjourn in the loss of a quorum. We'll begin with the council members. Council District 33, Ressler. 34, Gutierrez. 35, Hudson. 36, Osei. 37, Nurse. 38, Aviles. 39, Hanif. 40, Joseph. 41, Neely.
Can I say something? So right now, we are voting to adjourn.
We're joining to take the option of adjourning the meeting in the loss of a quorum. The alternative thing that we could do is to seek to regain a quorum.
Okay. Until next month, correct?
Correct.
All right.
42, Banks. 43, Zwang. 44, Yeager. 45, Louis. 46, Narcisse. 47, Brannon. 48, Vernikoff. 50, Carr. And now I'll call the roll of the community boards on this motion. Community Board 1. Community Board 2. Community Board 3. Community Board 4. Community Board 5. Community Board 6. Community Board 7. Community Board 8. Community Board, I'll pause and actually explain that point of order now because there would be no further proceedings. Any member can at any point raise the question as to whether there's a quorum. We'd have to determine it. Alternatively, if I notice it as the chair, it is my duty to state it. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. Community Board 13. Community Board 14. Community Board 15. Community Board 16. Community Board 17. Community Board 18. The Office of Brooklyn Borough President votes yes. On the unanimous vote of the remaining board members and under the Roberts Rules, the meeting is adjourned until the next standing meeting on February 6, 2024, where the vote on the open matter will be resumed and picked up as unfinished business. May everyone have a good evening.